Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is December 3rd, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, for the first time in several months, we actually have two guests on. We have on returning guest, Lance Ferrell.
Thanks for having me back, guys. Glad to be here.
And we have on a first-time guest, someone I've known for several years now, and, I respect, and that is Sam Brannon.
How y'all doing today?
Sam Brannon, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? What have you been involved with?
Oh, yeah, real quick. In San Marcos, Hays County area, I spend most of my free time hound dogging county government and city government. I've been a candidate for Hays County Commissioner Precinct 3 in 2012, and last November, for mayor here in San Marcos. We didn't win either one of those, but I think we moved the fight forward in each. And yeah, so right now, just to give an example, we're trying to make sure our votes are counted at the ballot box, and we have some pretty good reasons to believe they're not. So
there was a lot of votes not counted in Hays County.
Yeah, in 2016, there were 1,816 that were never counted.
They had that presentation of like the different voting things. I was there, and they had like the entire voter list actually. I'm glad my name wasn't on it, but it was something else to see. Over 1,000 names of people in the area whose votes didn't count.
It's pretty stunning.
Yeah.
And then you look, just not to make this the topic of the day, but you look at the lack of response that we've gotten out of our county government on that and numerous other issues of that same magnitude around elections.
Because we'd probably have different elected officials if those people were counted. We don't know. But let's get into the show. The first thing that we want to talk about is something that angers me to no end, and I'm probably going to get very angry talking about this. But this is the results of the Kate Steinle case this week. Bobby, do you know what day that they came to their conclusion on it?
It was 2 days ago, so I guess that would have been Friday?
Friday. So if you don't know, the incident with Kate Steinle goes back... The incident was back in 2015. It was shortly after Donald Trump declared, actually.
Same month, actually. It was July of 2015.
Yeah, I think it was something like 2 weeks later. So, Kate Steinle was this young lady in San Francisco who was shot by an illegal alien in San Francisco. What was his name, Bobby?
His name was Jose Inez Garcia Zarate.
And this is a guy who was deported something like 5 times. He's been convicted on a lot of drug felonies, and this has been a case that's been pending for these 2 years, but it seemed like such an easy case to get this guy on, at least like, involuntary manslaughter at the minimum. Now, I think they overcharged him on purpose. They're going for second degree, but like the guy's story is so inconsistent. He's given 3 different explanations for what he was doing. So he was on this pier, and the gun that, killed Kate Steinle was a stolen park ranger's gun that went missing 3 days prior. Now, he claims he went to the pier. This gun was in like a bundle of clothing underneath the park bench or whatever on the pier. He sees it, and the first story they say is he dropped it and stepped on it, and it fired and hit this lady in the back. Now, the second explanation he gave was he found the gun and he tried to shoot sea lions and he hit this lady. And then the third one that I've seen is like he saw the gun and I guess he dropped it and fired, or somehow accidentally fired. I mean, is there any other things that you know, Bobby?
Well, all I know is that third story there is the one I think they were ultimately going with.
Yeah.
When it went to trial.
So, the guy can't keep his story straight. And when they were doing the trial, they made the people in the jury not take into account any of his prior history. Don't take into the fact that he's here illegally. Don't take into a factor that, he's committed so many crimes. And this guy got let go. He didn't get charged with anything at the end of the day.
Actually, he did. The only thing he got charged with, or I should say convicted of,
the illegal possession.
Illegal possession of a firearm by a felon.
Yeah. But they
it's
let
like a
him,
slap on the wrist, pretty much.
They let him walk out after everything's done. Sam or Lance, do you have any initial thoughts?
Honestly, this was probably the most infuriating story I've heard in a long time. Only in San Francisco could this happen.
Sanctuary City, San Francisco.
Yep.
And that's, the whole sanctuary city aspect of it pretty much is the reason why this story became so publicized.
Yeah.
Because, when we get to immigration later in the show, we have multiple stories this week of immigrants killing people. Yeah. Illegal immigrants killing people. But this is the one that got famous because, as you said, it happened 2 weeks after Trump announces he's running for president, and he's already being like, I'm going to be the immigration candidate. So it was forefront the entire time.
Trump was the only person that also talked about this. No other Republicans were even talking about this.
I mean, this is the reason why we have Kate's Law, or at least, what was passed for Kate's Law, which is a bill. It was passed by the House. The Senate hasn't voted on it for some reason.
Yeah.
But it increases the penalties for deported aliens who try to return to the United States and get caught again. So, it's a very good law. Yeah,
what upset me the most is that this case was designed to be an FU to Trump. Yeah. They made this into a national campaign to be like, yeah, we're going to stick it to Trump. And they let this guy go off because they saw it as a victory for them over the fascist regime of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm a little bit fascinated by this because I haven't really kept up with the story, and I've just heard some headlines. I don't really know what to say to it. Are we aware there have been other similar crimes in the San Francisco area recently? And I'm asking for a reason. I mean,
yeah, knowing their sanctuary city policy, and we talk about immigration every single week. I know we've had more stories from San Francisco.
Right. Well, the reason I ask, has anybody heard of the zebra murders?
No.
Okay, that's one to Google later on because I'm trying to remember exactly the period of time. I think it was in the 70s. Go back and Google zebra murders in San Francisco area.
73, 74.
73, 74, yeah. And do a little bit of reading on that. There were, they believe that there were many murders that were very intentionally coming from Islamic people against white people. And the plan was to make it so fearful for white people to live there that they all move out of San Francisco.
That's pretty crazy.
And you don't hear anything about this. And supposedly, when we talk about...
Because that could make people mad, and you don't want that.
Well, exactly. So supposedly, and I haven't, I've read two things about it. I haven't researched it in detail, but it has kind of captured my attention. Just from the standpoint that nobody has ever heard of that. Mm-hmm. And if that was going on in large numbers, and I think the numbers were fairly large on there.
Yeah, they said 15 confirmed, for the zebra murders, it was 15 confirmed killed, possibly up to 73, though.
Okay, right.
So,
yeah.
San Francisco's a joke. And, I brought this up one time before we were on the podcast, how they call it BART, Bay Area Rapid Transport. Mm-hmm. They withhold surveillance videos of criminals to avoid stereotypes. This city is all about on the subways they won't release those videos because, well, let's be honest, we know who's doing most of the crime and robberies, but they won't release it because that puts a bad image of minority stereotypes.
And they literally cite that as
you can look it up. I was just reading a CBS article. Yeah.
And speaking of citing things as the reason, I think it was the prosecutor in this case, or not the prosecutor, since he was the defendant. His attorney, his defense attorney, literally in the court was saying, "Oh, and by the way, when this case gets ruled on Trump, I know you're listening and you're going to tweet about this. Just know that this is this is against you. This is against you." And so you have a jury of people from San Francisco.
Yeah.
So you can tell the type of people.
I wonder where they're going to go.
So, I don't know if you heard the press conference that his, defense attorneys gave afterwards, but they talked about you see, this wasn't a matter of his immigration status or where he's from, and this is a big rebuke against people like Trump and stuff. And I want to say something very objective about this case. If this guy wasn't here, Kate Steinle would be alive. Objectively.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
barring any sort of motive or accident, or I'm trying to fucking shoot sea lions, like, she would be alive. But,
if it just saves one life, like they always say.
Yeah.
Just saves one life.
I always like to throw that back on them. They're like, oh, if we can pass any sort of gun legislation that would save at least one life, it'd be worth it. But if we can pass any sort of immigration policy that would save a life, we can't do that. We're not allowed to. That would be bigoted or something.
Yeah. And you would think San Francisco, being so anti-gun, would be very angry at a man that used a gun to kill someone.
They have some of the harshest gun laws in the country.
Yeah.
And, they claim that this guy had, like, no knowledge of even using the gun. Like, he sees it, he's like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
Some sort of crazy, weird thing, I don't know, and it just went off. And he was
when
like,
I stepped
oh, what's
on it,
this?
like...
And then he took the gun, and he was like, oh, no, it made a loud noise, so he threw it into the bay and ran away after killing someone.
Yeah, I'm sure he had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, this guy is like a 7-time convicted drug dealer from Mexico. I'm pretty sure that you know how to use a gun. Like, I don't know.
That'd be like a Navy SEAL killing someone and say, "Oh, I didn't know how to throw a punch right.
Yeah.
It was an accident. I just threw it." It's like, no.
But this guy, He's been deported 5 times, and he was in San Francisco doing this. It's a sanctuary city. He knows where to go, where he won't get in trouble for these things. He's going out of his way to go to a sanctuary city. As we've seen many times talking about different stories in regards to sanctuary city, these places are magnets for crime.
Yep.
And if they actually, did something smart and put this guy up for an ICE detainer, he wouldn't be, out killing people.
Didn't he have an ICE detainer?
He was recently released prior to doing this, the incident, the alleged murder. And if he had an ICE detainer, he would have, been deported. Not that keeps him out. This guy keeps on coming back. But you think you'd want to do something to get rid of this guy and keep him out. But,
you mean like
they don't want to do
building a
that.
wall, maybe?
Building a wall, taking stuff seriously, but, we can't do that. We just have to let the Kate Steinles of the world die so we can have more illegal aliens in this country, apparently. I guess that's the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a pretty noble way to feel, and we're doing a bunch of good for people that want to be in this country, right?
That don't want anything to do with our country, they just want all the benefits of it. But yeah, we're doing good by it.
But we have to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice our own citizenry to do that.
Yep.
Kate Steinle's parents don't get to celebrate Christmas with her this, Christmas, because she's dead. Because we let this guy come in. And it didn't have to happen. And if this is a serious country, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, they always want to be like, everyone, like Bernie especially, like, oh, we should be like, Norway and Sweden. It's like, you mean the countries with extremely harsh border restrictions? Like, we're the only country, they always talk about, we need to be like the rest of the industrialized world. Like, we're the only country in the industrialized world that just has an open border to the south and no one cares.
An open border to one of the most violent war zones in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, people don't want to talk about Mexico as a war zone. If you look at, the total deaths, and we talked about this, me and Bobby, when we did our podcast in the Global Conflicts Report. Okay, in terms of deaths, Syria, number 1. Iraq, number 2. Afghanistan, number 3. Number 4 is Mexico. Wow. And what's number 5?
Somalia.
So yeah,
wow.
Mexico has more violence than Somalia. But we're supposed to keep an open border to this?
Oh, and by the way, one of the strongest gun restrictions in the... there's I think 1 legal gun store in Mexico, the whole thing?
Yeah, they have... The only people that have guns are the criminals.
Yeah.
And they pay off the government so the government doesn't go after them.
Yep.
I was in Italy in September, most of September, and I don't know if you guys are aware, but they've got a huge influx of immigrants coming from Africa.
Yeah.
And they get on the boats, and it's just like overwhelming their country. And these guys, I presume some of them were boy soldiers, so they're not really the kind of people that you really want coming in if you don't know them and all that kind of stuff, because they're, they've got a different history and a different culture and upbringing than we're familiar with, and the Italians are familiar with. And you see them out panhandling, and it's normally one at a time. You never see them in groups. I think they've been told that would scare people, and they're, always fairly humble. But the Italian citizens are having to pay over $1,000 a month to the immigrants that are there, plus a cell phone, plus they buy them a bicycle. And this is a country where the average retirement is about that same $1,000 a month. So these guys are getting the same benefits that of people that have lived and worked there all along. And Italy's not a rich country. I mean,
it's very poorly.
It's a poor country. And, a lot of people are living off money that was, made in the family generations ago, and they see that going away very quickly. And just to give you an example of how bad it's gotten there on their border and how they're inviting all these people in, the immigrants, the migrants, as they call them, they don't pay to ride buses and trains and that sort of thing. And normally the train conductors and bus drivers just don't want to fuck with them, right? So they just leave them be. But while I was there, a girl that works in my girlfriend's office there, she came to work and she told the story that there was a migrant on the train that morning the conductor was actually trying to get money off of. And because he didn't have a ticket, wouldn't pay money, so he went out and got a couple of cops and they tried to get him off and he resisted. And they beat the living fuck out of him to about the applause of 200 or 300 Italians. That's how sick of it they've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're letting it go on, and they have, I'm not aware that they've had any, big crime wave come out because of it, but it's sort of that infiltration. You don't know when it's going to snap, and they're so tired of having to deal with this that, when these cops were beating this guy up, they would just clap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People all across the world are fed up with this idea that you can just let anyone from anywhere in the world and it's automatically positive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They want to ignore the fact that there's negative aspects to immigration or illegal immigration. And, there's no such thing in the world of just something's always 100% good. But we have to view immigration that way because it's a religion to the people on the left. Because at the end of the day, they always talk about, they're doing the jobs that you don't want to do. Like voting for Democrats at this point. Like, they're not trying to make an argument. They're just trying to bring people in that's going to be their voter base for the future. And that's why, they're okay with Kate Steinle's murder walking freely.
Yeah, because the real objective is the underlying Marxism within all of this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at any national issue going on right now, all I see is free markets versus Marxism. Mm-hmm. And what we've had happen here at the campus is a good example of that. Every issue that pops up, it's this open borders. The Marxists know that they have to collapse our society in order for their dream to be able to take hold, whatever fucked up dream that is.
Yeah.
That they can't articulate, because in every description of that dream, they leave out the 100 million dead part, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is it's been called cultural Marxism. It's been called the postmodernism. It's just freaking communism, and they need chaos in this country and in every Western country in order to flip it and let it become something else that requires a lot of government attention, because that empowers government.
Yeah. But they always, they're out with their chants like, no hate, no fear, refugees are welcome here. You're not allowed to even fear what these people might do, even though we have stories, just like the one we're talking about, where an illegal alien comes to this country and they kill someone. Or an illegal alien comes to this country and they drunk drove and they kill someone. Or they rape someone. But you're just a fearful bigot if you say, anything about this.
They go out of their way to make themselves like they're the virtuous ones.
Yeah, even though they're the ones that are bringing problems to society.
Yeah. I mean, I don't forgot what country it was where there was a guy that was raped by a migrant, and he didn't report it because he didn't want the migrant getting deported.
I believe it was Sweden.
It was one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
You're
Sweden.
kidding
Too.
me.
Yeah. He didn't want to say anything because he was like, if I say something, they'll deport him, even though he was raped by the guy.
This is how pathologized people are to immigration, which
Maybe
is why I
like
say
it.
it's
Maybe
religion.
Yep.
You can't break the orthodoxy. And, a lot of people are mad about how this Kate Steinle thing went. I'm very mad. But there's a lot of people that are happy that it went this way. Not so much people are celebrating like, yeah, he got off, but a lot of people are breathing a big sigh of relief because they don't want people coming after this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
ICE is going after him now.
Yeah, so the Department of Justice has said that they're going after this guy no matter what, because they just let him go. They just let him go. So they're going to try and get him and Jeff Sessions said he's going to deport him, but that doesn't seem to stop him at all.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do stuff more than just deport this guy. In a sane world, we would just be getting rid of this guy, one way or another. Why do people have to put up with this?
And if what it takes to get rid of him is wait till the middle of the night with some guys dressed up in all black with masks, throw him in the back of a van he's never seen again, I'm perfectly fine with that personally. I mean, I was saying
not that we're advocating to do that, but if it happened, I would not be pissed off.
If someone brought criminal charges to someone who did that and I was on the jury, I would say not guilty.
But here's the thing, okay, we're going after this guy. Hopefully we catch him. This guy is great political capital for Donald Trump. You can pretty much use this guy to justify anything he wants for immigration. I don't want this ended quickly. I want you to put this guy on TV a lot. He doesn't have legal rights as a citizen, so he doesn't have protection from double jeopardy. Just put him on trial again.
Yep.
Let's prolong this. Let's have Donald Trump saying, if this guy wasn't here, Kate Steinle would be alive. This is why I need to build a wall. This is why I need to get more ICE agents. This is why I need more Border Patrol agents. This, they talk about propaganda in such this negative light. The right's going to exploit these tragedies. No, we are just responding to reality. And we want to prevent bad things from happening in the future. And if you're not okay with that, you're against the citizenry of this country in favor of foreign nationals.
Yeah.
Just say that.
I mean, I don't know many citizens that can get off with murdering someone.
If the guy was an American citizen, he wouldn't be getting off.
Yeah. I brought this up before, too, is they give, the Democrats and the left in general, give illegal immigrants more benefits than the citizenry of America. At this point, it would be better to be an illegal than a citizen. What does the citizen of the United States have that the illegal immigrant doesn't have right now?
Liability.
Yeah. It's really remarkable how, you're treated as even a better, you're treated as someone who could be better than a normal citizen.
They're automatically more virtuous than you. They're automatically more hardworking
They're the
than
future.
You. They're automatically more educated than you.
And they're more American than you because they got to choose to come here. You didn't.
Yeah, I love that. They call it, they're just
says.
as American. Guys, I got news for you. If you don't support, the basic, freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, and, states' rights and all that stuff, you're not really American. I don't know many people that are coming through the southern border that are you know what? I can't wait to get to America so that I can have freedom of speech and the right to bear arms and, really adopt, an American culture of individualism. They don't. They go, they have a lot of money that I can get on welfare, and, they have really attractive women, and I can go to sanctuary cities where I can kill people and get away with it.
But, they've done studies on this. Okay, I could pull it up, but, I'll just tell you what they talk about. And they talk about the reasons why, illegal aliens came to the United States. And you know what the number one reason why they come? Economic, opportunity.
Yeah.
To become an American is not on the list.
No.
That's not the intention. A lot of these people just want to make money, and then they just want to go back. It's not that they want to make this place any better. They just want to use it.
Half of them hate this place.
Yeah.
Especially, if you're in California. You look at the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, they see that as the worst thing that ever happened. The United States now has California, New Mexico, Arizona, all that, because the United States took Mexico's capital. They're still pissed off about that. They're not very happy about that whole Mexican war thing.
A lot of them see, them coming across as a reconquista. We're taking back what is ours. Even though we settled this, over 100 years ago.
But they genuinely do still consider it part of Mexico.
Yeah.
By all sense of purposes, California is not part of the United States anymore.
No.
That's not even a controversial thing to
if
say.
Kim Jong-un actually nuked San Francisco, it'd be all right, it's not the worst place he could have hit.
We can rebuild the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, we're okay. If it wasn't for the multiple naval...
I just want to let you know, a third of our listeners are in California. They'll probably know better than us how bad it is, but, I don't know.
I'd say the same thing about downtown Austin, too, so don't feel bad.
But, okay, so the Sanctuary
Austin,
City...
California, what's the difference?
Yeah. I want to bring up the Sanctuary City aspect of this story. This is an aspect of, crime is, magnet to a sanctuary city. This is something that we experienced here in Texas, okay? Austin, I guess, is still a sanctuary city because they upheld SB 4. Back when the administration first started, we used to have the decline detainer list, which says like, oh, when they're not going to honor their detainers, Austin would be on the list a ton. Okay, every single week you'd see like 15 guys that were caught illegals drunk driving, and they just let these people go.
Yeah.
ICE says we want to get these guys and deport them, and the city of Austin says no, they're oppressed or something, so they need to go out. And every single guy that you let off is a guy that might end up hitting someone on the road. It's not just drunk driving. There's tons of assaults on there as well. There's tons of robberies. Any sort of heinous crime you could think of, there's tons of them.
I mean, let them go.
And they don't even release these reports anymore, which is kind of upsetting. But, every single week, Austin would have 30 or 40 declined detainers.
Austin's one of the worst.
And the city officials, support this.
Yep.
So, the officials in these liberal cities, they don't represent the people.
No.
They
They do of the big cities.
It's confusing, and I lose my mind about this, but, I don't know. Any other last thoughts on Kate Steinle before we move on?
Well, I could say what I could say what I've been saying about California.
Yeah.
Which I put this on our Twitter account. So honestly, I'd be okay with just sending in the troops and declaring California a occupied territory at this point. Everyone has to show their papers.
True.
We need to establish the order again.
Pretend it's like a France World War II. Occupy the territory and put in our own people as jurors.
I mean, they declared the entire state a sanctuary city a couple months ago.
Sanctuary state.
Or sanctuary state, yeah.
That was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's like I said, by all sense of purposes, California is not part of the United States anymore, and that's not a controversial thing to say.
States aren't allowed to set federal immigration, standards.
But that's all I have to say about that.
Any thoughts, Lance?
Build a wall.
Build a wall. Any final thoughts on the story, Sam?
You guys have.
Yeah. Let's move on to something that doesn't infuriate me so much, and that is the Senate passed the tax reform bill this week. The only person that voted against it was, on the Republican side, was Bob Corker, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is funny because he
said he was going to.
What he said a couple weeks ago when they were first debating it was, and I'm paraphrasing, my hatred of Trump will not get in my way of voting for tax reform. But wasn't it, I think it was, who was it, Ron Johnson?
He was the guy that was openly against it for most of the time.
And he voted for it.
Trump was personally lobbying him all week to vote for it.
So anyways, this was the Senate version of the tax bill, which was different from the House version. So now it's going to go to reconciliation, and then both houses have to vote on it again. They want to get this thing done, signed into law by Christmas, which, I mean...
We're still on time to do that.
It can die at any point. Reconciliation can fail. They could vote on the thing after reconciliation. The House could vote against it. House could vote for it, and the Senate could then vote against it again. So it's all going to be like a wait and see at this point. But it passed 51-49, so, really, really close. The problem is, if it goes to reconciliation, you still got to worry about making sure the people that voted for it this time still vote for it.
The House are kind of safe. I mean, we have the numbers to,
we have even with Republican dissenters in the House, we still have enough votes in the House, thankfully.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about the House. I am not worried about the House. I am worried about the Senate because Bob Corker will probably still vote against it. John McCain could change his mind and vote against it, even though I'm thankful that he actually said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and support this thing.
I'm surprised the usual suspects for problem people in the Republican Party didn't, shit on this vote as much.
We had
did.
I think it was 5 or 6 people that we were putting up in our toss-up category. 4 of them or 5 of them, well, all but one here, ended up coming out and saying, you know what, screw it, I do support this thing.
We were worried about Jeff Flake, John McCain, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Bob Corker, and Ron Johnson. Mm-hmm. And Ron Johnson last week was the only guy that we knew was going to vote no. In the end, he voted yes.
Yeah.
But some good stuff has come out of this bill. It gets rid of the individual mandate from Obamacare. It means that 20% corporate tax rate, which is my favorite component. What are some other things that you like about the bill, Bobby?
When you're referring to the Senate bill?
Yeah.
Essentially that. The Senate bill also, what it did was, it was the one that did away with the federal deductions for state and local taxes. But what it was different from the House bill is it allows deductions of up to $10,000 for local property taxes. So for a state like Texas, where your property taxes are really high, that does help out a little bit. I mean, you can already deduct some of that stuff already, but that's what people are complaining. I mean, in the House version of the bill, there was a couple of congressmen from New York who specifically voted against it because it got rid of the deductions for state and local taxes.
Rodney Figulison or whatever, however you say his name.
Yeah.
He was really mad.
But other than that, they liked it. It was that one specific thing because he was like, this is going to hurt my state.
Well, for so long with taxes, because we have these state and local deductions, like the blue states, they'll put really high tax rates knowing that their constituencies can write it off, but they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So,
if anything,
it's going to penalize them, for the first time in a long time for having high taxes.
Oh, good. What also the Senate bill does that the House doesn't, or the House bill does not, was the doubling of the standard deduction. I actually thought this was in the House bill, but it was only in the Senate bill. So that is important, especially since you're going to be getting rid of a lot of things that you're already able to itemize and deduct. So that's important to do. What the Senate bill also does is it retains the current limit for home mortgage interest deductions to interest paid on the first $1 million of the loan. Whereas the House bill is only $500,000 for the loan. So people are worried about that. Senate bill expands that a bit. So I personally like the Senate version of that one better than the House one. The Senate version also preserves the deduction for medical expenses not covered by insurance. The House bill does not. So I want to make sure that stays in there. But it also does end deductions for moving expenses and tax preparation. So if you used to get your taxes done by some H&R Block person at Walmart, and you paid them $200, you could deduct that $200. Not anymore. You just got to pay the $200. But like we said, you're getting rid of a lot of deductions. But if you increase or you double the standard deduction, up to $12,000 for individual, $24,000 for couple, most people are not itemizing up to $24,000 in a year. Yeah. Especially if you're a couple that's making only like $80,000, $90,000 together tops. So the doubling of the standard deduction more than covers 99% of people. I'm not going to lie. We've said this on the show. There are some people in this country that are going to see their taxes raised as part of this plan. A lot of rich people. So if you're one of the people that's like, oh, this is favoring the rich at the expense of the middle class.
What was the Twitter thing? Hashtag tax scam?
Oh, yeah. They were saying, yeah, that's what was trending on Twitter, was like hashtag tax scam. Which is hilarious because, like I said, if you actually look at the components of these bills and you metaphorically were to implement them, the top 1% would see their taxes raised.
Yeah.
The priority has always been help out the middle class. Everything in this,
which is not
helps
something
out the middle class.
I don't really want to raise the taxes on them ideologically, and in this way, that's how we're cucking on the right. Mm-hmm. But they complain. They always want to make it the only reason why there's tax cuts is to help the rich. You're gonna get screwed in the end, you middle American. When that's just objectively false, and if you actually take the time to read this stuff, you'd know that.
What they're also do is they're trying to push the narrative that it's actually going to lead to massive tax hikes for the middle class because in 2025 or something, some of the stuff is set to expire, so they have to renew it. Yeah. Never in history have we ever not renewed those things, okay? Keep that in mind. We always, boom, get it. Now, they make edits to them, they change it, but they always renew that sort of stuff. They never let those expire. Ever. No matter Republican president, Democrat president, Republican, Democrat control of Congress, doesn't matter. So they're trying to push this but in 2025 it's going to expire and they're going to raise your taxes. Then you're going to get screwed, middle class. Ha ha, Trump sucks. Whereas, like we said, the exact opposite is not true. So the only thing about the Senate bill that I really don't like is the fact that it keeps all 7 tax brackets.
All 7.
All 7. Whereas the House bill will reduce it down to 4. It was going to be 3, but then they added the 4th one, which
4 is fine.
My view is if you can simplify even one thing, go for it. Don't vote no just because you don't like one part of it. If you can get 90% of what you want and 10% of what you don't want, that's a really good victory.
Also, didn't the Senate bill increase child benefit credits?
Yeah, I'm getting to that point. I'm reading an article. It's got paragraphs. So I'm trying to look at the stuff. What the Senate bill does is if you're a small business owner, so if you're one of those, they have this thing called a pass-through business, that is businesses that aren't incorporated. The Senate bill allows their owners to deduct 23% of their earnings and then pay all their personal income taxes on the remainder of that. Because most people that have like a small business, they just include the small business income as their income.
Yeah.
And so the question is, was that going to be taxed differently? Was that going to be changed? If you're getting the corporate tax rate down to 20% and you're an individual who goes into business, are you going to be taxed at 20%? Theoretically, you're going to be taxed higher than that, because if so, then, you can understand where there's complications coming through. It said, look, if you are a person that does that, take out 23%, go ahead, deduct that. The rest of it, just pay off of that. And then you can still take like standard deductions and stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
So for small business owners, most of them will see their taxes go down, which is good. And that was actually the key issue of Ron Johnson and Steve Daines, both from Montana.
That's why Ron took so long to get on
was
board.
Because of that specific thing.
I actually remembered why Bob Corker voted no. What he wanted was a thing where if the GDP in the country just tanked or something, taxes would automatically go up to accommodate for it. Which, like, if you know anything about, like, economics, like, that's a really dumb idea.
It's a really bad idea.
But, this fucking guy. It's good he's not running again.
Yeah, I know. Unlike the House bill, the Senate bill cuts the current corporate tax rate from 35 to 20. I actually thought that was in the House bill. That wasn't. That was only in the Senate bill. Yeah.
It's important to get that dealt with.
But the Senate bill also calls for... I'm sorry, what I just said was completely false. They both cut it to 20. But what the Senate bill does is it calls for a 1-year delay in dropping the rate. Meaning companies and corporations have to wait till next year in order to
2019
take advantage of the 20%. Which, I mean, I don't like that personally. We'll see what happens in reconciliation. They might take that away. But like I said, everything here can get reconciled in or out or changed. They could change literally everything during reconciliation process. So, but we're just going after, what's in there. Because most of the stuff that's in there is going to stay during reconciliation. They're just going to mash it together. Stuff that's different, figure out, compromise. So,
which it's going to take a bit to do it. The negotiations on this are, very... very hard to do with all the competing interests in Congress at the moment. But, I don't know. Lance or Sam, do you have any thoughts on how everything's been going with tax reform?
I was going to say, if it goes to reconciliation, it'll be funny to see how angry the left gets, even though that was their number one tool to get Obamacare passed.
Well, it automatically has to go to reconciliation because the bills are different.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Yeah, I learned more in the last 10 minutes by far than I knew walking in here. Thank you for the education.
Oh no, it's good. When you have to cover every single development every single week, like you get really inundated.
Yeah. No, I look at that was one of the questions I really wanted to be here was to hear your discussion on it, because that's the first discussion I've heard on it yet. You see a couple headlines like, oh yeah, just tax breaks for the rich, and he promised them all to the middle class, right? So that's mainly the thing I was coming and listening to is, he's in a weird spot. I'd like for him to be able to say, I did one more thing I promised you I would do.
He needs this victory.
Yeah. So as long as it's providing some relief, I like tax cuts regardless of who they hit. I think it's good. I hate tax increases regardless of who they hit. I think those are bad. So as long as we're moving the ball down the field in that regard, I'm content.
Yeah. And also just like,
well, I was going to say, and that's why I like to point out the fact that they're always like, oh, this is only benefiting the rich. But as we've said, we've done the numbers. Some rich people will see their taxes go up, which granted, I don't like that. But if you are one of those people that's out there and it's like, you're only benefiting the rich, you're hurting the middle class, when that's objectively not true, and the opposite, in fact, is what's true. You try to tell that to people, and they don't believe you. They won't listen to you. They'll just block you.
But then you start asking them about, like, some of the more finer details of it. They just don't know anything. So, I mean...
Like, you can ask them a quick question and say, how many brackets does the House bill have? You could literally Google that in 10 seconds and figure out the answer. But they'll change the subject.
It shows you how effective the left's, 99% rhetoric works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, when they talk about, oh, this is tax cuts for the rich, they don't mention how much the rich even pays. Like, what was it? We talked about
we
studies on this. The top 10% is paying like 90% of taxes?
No. It's the top 20% pays 90% of the taxes, but the top 1% pays just over half.
Yeah.
It's like 52 or 53%.
So why shouldn't they receive most of the cuts if they're paying for most of everything?
And Washington Post read an article saying that 38% of Americans won't see any changes to their taxes. Well, yeah, but when 47% of Americans don't even pay taxes, you can also say 62% of Americans will see their taxes go down because of this. And of taxpayers alone, that's like 80% of taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So...
Is it the same tax bill that they were asking the Bernie supporters about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just in general tax policy.
Yeah,
in
just
terms
Trump's
of what
tax
we're going
policy
towards.
in general.
For all sense of purposes, yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, because it's funny to hear their reaction, how they love it, but then you tell them, oh, it's actually Trump's tax plan, and what? Like you said, you can find all this stuff online. You can Google it.
To say what you're referencing, there is a video on Campus Reform where they go on college campuses and they tell people that Trump's tax plan is actually Bernie's tax plan, and they all like it. But then they also ask them, like, oh, what do you think of Trump's tax plan? And they're like, oh, it's terrible. And then afterwards they tell them, like, actually everything we told you is Trump's tax plan. They're like, oh, you really got me.
Well, I'll say one thing. If this does simplify the tax code at all, you think that... if it made it more complicated, you'd want more time to file your taxes, right? But if it simplifies it, you're actually getting more time to file it. You know why? Because next year, your taxes are not due until April 17th instead of April 15th. Ooh. You know why? Because April 15th next year is a Sunday.
April 17th is the day before my birthday.
Happy early birthday, Enzo. That's like 2 weeks after mine. So, yeah, 2 weeks after before. Yeah. Anyways, so...
I think in closing, last thing I want to say in reference to, like, the little video that we're talking about is just, like, people come at all of this stuff from a standpoint like, oh, you support Trump or Trump policies, that means you're automatically dumb. But then, and they'll call you an ignorant person for your support of him. But when you come down to, like, actually knowing things, they don't. And it's so crazy that you even have to, like, combat these things. But, most people don't look into these things very closely. Let's move on to the Mike Flynn stuff. So, this came out, like, what, yesterday or 2 days ago?
This was yesterday.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, this was Friday. This was Friday.
So, Mike Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
Yeah, and this was, if you remember, Mike Flynn was Trump's ex-national security advisor. He worked with him for a time during the campaign and during the transition period, where all this stuff comes from. And this is all part of the whole, Mueller's Russia investigation scandal that's been going on. What happened was, during the transition period, as National Security Advisor, Mike Flynn was told by members of the campaign to go ahead and meet with different ambassadors and stuff for different countries, Russia included. So it was like a just Russia thing. It was to talk to a lot of different ambassadors, including the Russian ambassador. Well, during the Mueller probe, he was questioned, and he was asked questions by the FBI, and he lied to the FBI about that specifically. Because he lied to both the FBI and to Mike Pence about this, that's when Trump fired Flynn back in, was it February or March? Early
administration.
He's only in for like 25 days, so...
Yeah, it was very, very early on. But, Mike Flynn did nothing wrong, is the narrative I know that we like to say.
Mike Flynn did nothing wrong. So they've been trying to paint this whole thing up, and they feel like they had a victory on, like, oh, Trump colluded with Russia. But, like, the thing is, the controversy that we're talking about is something that happened during the transition.
After he was elected.
So Mike Flynn was colluding with the Russians after Trump won the election to win the election.
And what you bring up there is very, very important, because if anyone watches our good friend Brian Ross on ABC, well, you ain't going to be watching him anymore, I might say, he's the one who broke the story, okay? And this has been a very, very big controversy, and I'm actually glad that this kind of like blew up because people are focusing on this now and not the actual Flynn part, is the fact that Brian Ross told everybody on his ABC show that when Mike Flynn was told to meet with the Russians, it was during the campaign. Okay?
Demonstrably false.
Yes. Whereas he had an issue a correction later on that it was not during the campaign, it was during the transition period. During a transition period, he can meet with any ambassador he wants for any reason.
You're preparing to start a new government. Legal.
Barack Obama did it, or he had his people do it. George W. Bush had his people done it. Every single president has their people meet with different ambassadors and whatnot to talk about, okay, say, I'm about to be in charge of this country. Let's get some ground rules. Let's meet with each other. Let's talk. That is standard operating procedure. Everyone's done it. But because of the Russia thing, they're all focused on that. So anyways, Brian Ross on ABC goes out and says, this is all, it was during the campaign. And, they were saying that Mike Flynn is set to testify. He's agreed to testify against Trump, that the Trump team told him to meet with these people. When that story broke, the Dow Jones dropped 350 points in 20 minutes. Whoa. We had a mini stock market crash on Friday. And it was all because of this story, which came out to be false, and they've had to issue a correction. Trump even tweeted this morning saying, hey, if you lost money when the market crashed because of fake news, you should sue ABC for that.
I love Trump.
Granted, I think they should. I think that all fake news stories should be treated almost as much as, if you lied to the FBI, what happens to you? If the news lies to us and causes,
I can't believe lying to the FBI is a crime.
They can lie to us.
That's all they do is lie to us. I mean, how can they prosecute somebody for lying to? I mean, who wants to talk to them anyway?
Yeah, true.
So I can tell you exactly what Flynn was talking about when he was quote unquote colluding with Russians. So during the transition, Jared Kushner wanted to deal with the Israeli settlement issue, with Israeli settlements, into Palestine territory. So he told Flynn to go and talk to people that are representatives of all different countries to come to agreement on this. And one of those countries that they came to agreement on, or at least reached out to, was Russia. And when the FBI came to him about this, he just said, no, I didn't talk to Russians. This is the incident where he actually lied about it. So he didn't do anything illegal. There's nothing out of the ordinary about what he did. Now, okay, he lied to the FBI, and if he gets in trouble for that, so be it. But this isn't a damnation of Trump at all.
Did you see on The View when they broke the news? You saw it, Bobby? Oh my God, Joy Behar, she's having the biggest celebration of all time. Trump.
And she was reading the ABC story.
Yeah. And dude, Brian Ross, this guy's got a history of being a joke. You remember with the Aurora, Colorado shooting?
Yeah.
And he was the first guy to come on live TV and say, well, there is a Jim Holmes on the Tea Party list in Colorado. I'm sure it was within a few hours he was just saying, oh, it was probably the Tea Party that shot up this place. This guy, this is the kind of guy that does this. And they always say, Trump, he has nothing to do with the record high stock market. And then the minute you say Flynn's going to testify and bring Trump down, the stock market collapses.
Every single time there has been bad news that has come out of the Russia probe, the market has gone down.
Yet Trump has nothing to do with the success of the market.
And every single time good things happen, for instance, when John McCain came out and said, yes, I am going to vote in favor of this tax reform bill, the Dow went up 200 points within an hour because of that news. So good news regarding Trump, markets do good. Bad news regarding Trump, markets do bad. So if you really wanted to crash the United States economy right now, put out a bunch of fake news stories about Trump, have everyone talk about it, never issue retractions, even though it's, you can have it being the most obviously false thing out there. Never issue a retraction, but just, come together and do that. You can take the entire United States economy, which can tank the world economy based on fake news.
It has before,
yeah. Imagine if ABC doubled down on the story. Imagine if they never issued a retraction, and if the real story got out, they claimed that was fake news, and that their version was the real version. You could take the country down like that. I mean, the Washington Post is what took down the freaking presidency of Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Remember that. That was the Washington Post that did that. And the Washington Post this time also, like I was saying earlier, they issued a story about this as well, but I forget what they said. Anyways,
But
so
in summary,
actually, there's one thing I actually noticed that we didn't mention about Brian Ross was he's been suspended without pay for 4 weeks.
Good.
On what point?
Lying and causing chaos and panic to people, especially the whole market thing. Now, I'll tell you, he's the fall guy here.
Yeah.
That came from ABC executives and higher-ups to decide what narrative are we going to push with the story, what are we going to say. That came from producers, editors, writers, all that sort of stuff. But he's the guy that's on TV doing it, so he's the one who's taking one for the team here.
Yeah, but see what's odd though is just like what Enzo was just saying. Like people people in the higher ups in the media have to know that like this is a normal thing to do. Like there's nothing out of the ordinary.
you have to spin it to the public and make it seem like it's not.
Like so, either they're just unbelievably stupid and are completely ignorant of everything, or they know this and they're just trying to push my Russia, we can get Trump out of there.
Like, okay, when Barack Obama was elected, he had a transition team, and they reached out to Russian officials as well.
Well, you remember with Obama, when he was talking to that Russian diplomat, and he just goes, "This is my last election. After this, I'll have more flexibility." Like, how is that not collusion in any way, shape, or form? When he's running for re-election, telling them...
Yeah, he said, after my election, I'll have more flexibility.
Yeah.
Like, and this was back in, like,
what do you mean,
middle
buddy?
of the summer, so it's like, oh, you mean you're sure you're going to win? I mean, it was 2012, so yeah, there's no way Mitt Romney was going to win that thing, unfortunately. But still.
It's just kind of funny. Like, oh, what do you mean by that? Just wait till I get elected and then I'll do whatever, huh? What do you mean? Got away with that one.
Yeah. But in summary, big non-story, but they thought it was for a little bit the left.
Of course. It's like every Russia story. Like, you go on Reddit and it's like the top 5 posts have like 70,000 upvotes. Like, oh my God, we're bringing Trump down. We got him, Trump. It's over. And then a few hours later, you realize it was all just not even true.
And even on top of that, I understand that on the left, they're in a frenzy right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to take a sacrifice in order to calm that down. If that means hang hang Mike Flynn out to dry just to appease the left, knowing that it's not going to hurt Trump or anyone on the right at all, I say go ahead and go for it. So, sorry, Flynn, but bye-bye.
And friendly reminder, Flynn was like the only Democrat involved with the Trump campaign, and he was only with them for like 25 days.
He's formerly a part of the Obama administration.
Yeah, they're making this out like this was like Trump's #1 man like the whole time, and it's like...
We're fine without him. It's no big deal. But let's move on to this thing that you have about the Obama watchdog stuff, Bobby. You were telling me about it earlier.
Yeah, so this is a story that, if this week didn't have the Flynn story and didn't have the Kate Steinle story, this probably would be the #1 story of the week. So apparently there was a guy who worked for, I believe it was the NSA or one of the intelligence communities. They just call him a government watchdog. He actually worked for the Obama administration, and he was one of the few people that actually got to see what was inside of the classified Hillary Clinton emails that didn't get released, the like 20 or so of them. And even he said, yeah, there's information on this that like there's no way we can allow this to get out because it's like extremely damaging to national security. Those were some of the emails that went through on Hillary Clinton's unsecured email server. So he was one of the guys who had access to those, who was going through it. And when he was being questioned by Congress, was telling them, yeah, this stuff was classified. It was on an unsecured server. It should never have been doing this, blah, blah, blah. Essentially being like, kind of like our guy on the inside was saying that. Well, a story broke earlier this week that he was actually threatened. His family was threatened and his coworkers were threatened, not by the Obama administration, by the Hillary Clinton campaign, saying, if we win this election, we're going to fire you, we're going to fire your family, we're going to fire your coworkers, we're going to make life a living hell if you pursue and try to make, do anything about this email stuff, since you're the guy who has access to it. And he appeared on Tucker Carlson and told his whole story, and his name is, if I can find it right here, his last name is McCullough. I can't see if I can.
He's still alive?
He's still alive. Charles McCullough.
Isn't it kind of rare that you can talk that saucy to Hillary and live for very long?
And here's the thing. There's actually a quote from that. When he was talking to Congress, he was told by a member of Congress, he didn't say which one, he says, quote, "And I was told by members of Congress, quote, be careful, you're losing your credibility. You need to be careful, there are people out to get you." And that was when he was being questioned by Congress. Congress literally said, dude, like, they're going to kill you. Pretty much, they're going to kill you if you keep this up. So everyone knows. But he was actually hired personally by James Clapper, who was the director of national intelligence. Like, the guy we're talking about, you know, if you would have heard his description, you'd probably think, yeah, he's probably some high-level Dem. Mm-hmm. No, he was, like, actually honest about his job and what he was trying to do. And because he was honest in telling Congress the truth, like, yeah, there's classified stuff here. It shouldn't have been on an unclassified server. The Hillary Clinton campaign is like, hey, calm that down, or you're not going to have a future at all.
Yeah, well, Hillary had the story of nothing I sent or received contained classified information. So this would, you know, directly contradict that statement. So, of course, she's not going to want anything to get out about it.
And like I said, when he was saying, he said, yeah, those 22 emails that were marked higher than top secret, absolutely. They were supposed to be marked top secret. Like, you know, there's information there. We can't let that stuff get out. So he's not like he's saying, release the emails. He's saying, yeah, everything you've heard about all this stuff about their classified emails on an unsecured server, it's all true. And I was the guy that was investigating it. And he's the one that's was being targeted by the Clinton campaign. Mm-hmm. So thank God she didn't win. And thank God this guy's all right. Who knows if anyone's going to come after him anymore. I hope not. But other than that, that's pretty much what that story was. And like I said, if the other stories of the week, like tax reform, Mike Flynn, and Kate Steinle hadn't happened this week, this would have been the biggest story of the week. But instead, it's just kind of like, oh, okay.
It'll be a bigger story when he commits suicide with 3 bullets to the back of the head.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the kind of story that the media...
That's how it normally happens.
It's not the kind of story that the mainstream media would talk about, though. So.
And like I said, he went straight to Tucker Carlson, who I love Tucker Carlson, but, you know, like no one else would talk about it. Yeah. Hannity probably would have. Bill O'Reilly, if he was still around, probably would have. But other than that, no one else would have talked about this story.
Yeah, even though it should be bigger. Let's just quickly touch on the last thing before we get into some talk about the economy. It has been announced this week that Kellyanne Conway is going to become the opioid czar to do with the opioid crisis. I know Trump has received some criticism for me with how he's dealt with the opioid crisis. He recently, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, declared it a national crisis, which was good. And
I thought we were making billions off of that.
It depends on who you say we. I mean, there's people making billions off of it. I'll give you that. But, yeah, so she is going to be directed to do with the opioid crisis. And also another thing connected to that is, Trump donates his salary every single quarter to different causes. Trump's third quarter salary is going to fight the opioid crisis. So Trump's doing a couple things to deal with that. We've done an entire podcast on the opioid crisis. It's really bad, and I'm glad we're doing something about it. Let's get into some of these economy numbers we got, though. Really good stuff.
Yeah, really quick. We're not going to go to too much detail, but third quarter GDP revised up to 3.3% growth. So it was, I believe, 3 or 3.1?
It was 3.
It was exactly 3. So it got up. They said that consumer spending also increased to 2.5 from 2.4. So that increased as well.
And they thought it was going to be down for the third quarter with the hurricanes.
Yeah. They were predicting it was going to be about like 3.8 or so for the third quarter, but the hurricanes drove that down. But after they looked through all the data, revised up to 3.3, so that's really good. They also said business equipment spending rose 10.4% in that quarter.
It's very significant.
Which, if you can pretty much all say that's on the hurricane, if you think about it. Business equipment. And that's also a 3-year high. That was expected to only go up 8.6%. So, there's some good numbers in there, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, especially since the next number we have is more important. The New York Federal Reserve is predicting that fourth quarter GDP growth 3.9%.
3.9.
Yeah.
Barack Obama did not have a quarter that
he had 1 quarter.
1 quarter?
1 quarter above 3.
What sectors are growing?
Everything. Most of it's consumer spending, and like individual personal spending. Nothing's really down right now. I mean, I'm not looking at the exact numbers here, but I'm just remembering what we've talked about on the show in the past. But they said it's actually possible that if you can reach 3.9 or maybe 4 after revisions, that would swing the entire year of 2017 above 3. Because right now it's going to be like 2.8, 2.9 for the year. It's possible you could reach 3 in the first year if this gets revised. If this number one hits 3.9, and they always get revised. They'll probably get revised up because that's been the trend. If it gets revised up to 4, maybe 4.1, it's possible we could have 3% GDP growth in the year 2017.
And 3 is what you aim for. 3 is considered very good. Mm-hmm. So 3.9 for the fourth quarter, very, very good. And, you tag on top of that how the GDP should do after tax reform. I mean, we could be doing 4 or 5. Extremely well.
Even though it was, I think, the Congressional Budget Office, which is mostly always wrong in the negative sense, even they were saying that if tax reform does go through, you're probably going to see next year's GDP growth anywhere between, I believe they said 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
Which is what you just said. So even the Congressional Budget Office, which is normally wrong, said that. And like I said, they're normally wrong in the negative sense. So it could be 6%. I doubt it.
It's good to see that Obama's policies are finally kicking in.
I know. This Obama stock market rally ever since Trump's election has been fantastic.
Forward, baby.
It's funny when I hear people actually use that argument because what was it? First quarter was only 1.4? 1.4,
1.5.
I thought it never went above 3 under his whole 8 years.
In 2014, I think it was the second or third quarter of 2014.
He had one.
Obama had one quarter of 3.1% GDP growth or something like that.
Already has 2. He's going to have 3.
That's with the hurricanes.
That's with the hurricanes.
The 2 biggest hurricanes ever hit.
Yeah, so the
2 major hurricanes hit a week apart.
Me and Bobby with our podcast, we have an open stated bias towards Donald Trump. We acknowledge that. We've been doing the economy portion of the show since the very beginning. I'd say it's 98% good news always. It's not because we want it to be. It's just what things have happened. And generally the economy is really good. And good things to come, it looks like.
Granted, a lot of that's come because of him cutting regulations and whatnot. There was a Facebook post earlier today, even you posted, asking someone was what's some good things Trump's done? And you said, regulation cuts. And then you even provided a source link that had a description of it.
He didn't know about it, and he's a Republican, so, he doesn't have reason to doubt me. But I posted the source anyways. Most people don't know how well Trump has done with regulations, and that's what's helping the economy the most of the way.
Because he's dealt with them so much.
On average, Trump has cut, to every new regulation introduced into the federal government, he's on average cut 16. At the beginning of his administration, he put a executive order that everyone has to follow. If you want to put up a new regulation, you have to cut 2. Mm-hmm. So, places like the EPA that were going crazy under Obama, and they don't want to sacrifice any of their regulations, they just stop writing regulations because they don't want to cut any of their cash cows. And, in general, we're cutting so many regulations. Even though Trump doesn't have support from Congress, he's still making the economy work better. And, it is because of him.
It is.
He's on track to cut more regulations than anyone, more than Ronald Reagan. But, he doesn't get credit for this, really.
It was like when Obama said, what magic wand do you have? And then it turns out Trump actually does have a magic wand.
He does, yeah. Let's go into this study for the science technology portion that I wanted to talk about, because this is actually very interesting stuff. There's a study out of the McKinsey Global Institute, which is a economic think tank that is estimated by 2030 between 400 and 800 million people in the world will have their jobs replaced by automation and will need to find new jobs. Now, looking at how that breaks down, in the United States, it's predicted about a third of jobs will be automatized by 2030. So this is coming extremely quickly, and people are not prepared for it, but it's going to happen. I mean, we've talked about this many times before on the show, Bobby. It's happening right now. The robot's picking the vegetables. It's happening right now. The robot's flipping the burgers. It's happening right now.
I was just listening to talking about the Peterson. It was Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
He's got a piece on the artificial intelligence and what's coming out with that. And I think like this year or next year, they are supposed to have one that has the computing power equal to the human brain. And at the rate that they're progressing, they say it would be, something like 1 million times more powerful than the human brain within some short number of years, because the way they multiply order of magnitude and computing power. And he's like, you don't really understand what this is going to mean to your society. I think that was Jordan Peterson. It's last night, late watching it. Yeah, it's trippy, and so when you say 30%, it doesn't surprise me at all, because they're getting geared up for that.
Yeah,
which I always like to use this for immigration. They always say but you need these people to do all these jobs. These aren't going to exist. It's going to be worse if we have more people here when the problem happens. I mean, I can't foresee how we're going to get through this exactly, but also technology is going to open the door for new jobs. People are going to have to transition. I was watching a thing on The Economist last night. One of the industries that's going to change very soon is trucking. There's 3.5 million people in this country that are in the trucking industry, and they're already working on semis that can drive themselves. They've tested them and they work. What are you going to do with all these people that, not to say that they're stupid people, but they don't usually have college educations when they're, truck drivers? What skill aspects, or what skills do they have to apply to other things? I don't know. And we're going to have to, have this conversation for a lot of industries. Yeah. And it's not only just lower income industries or unskilled industries that are going to be affected. A lot of colleges, a lot of the degrees that people are getting, those, skill sets are going to be automatized in the same time period. So no one's ready to deal with this. Education's not ready to deal with this, but it's coming.
There's going to be a lot of economically unviable people.
Yeah.
And when they think of it in those terms, it doesn't look good.
I mean, personally, for me, what I think it's going to end up ultimately leading to is a population decline, because there's no way you're going to be able to support everybody.
At least in certain cultures it will.
Yeah. There's no way you're going to be able to support everybody unless you were to pass some sort of, universal basic income thing, which, I mean, I'm against that personally, but
I think automation is going to cause that to happen.
I think it's going to happen. There's going to be enough pressure from people that are like, hey, you've got 800 million robots working here for you, but you've only got 10 million actual jobs with 300 million people. How are you supposed to take care of that? Unfortunately, I think that's going to end up happening, or you'll see a population decline in order to match the needs.
Yeah.
It would be like a supply and demand thing with human population growth.
The thing that the left doesn't get about universal basic income is if you were to give everyone the same amount of money, you can do that. Like you said, if robots do whatever we need them to do and we just sit back and relax, awesome. Everyone gets the same amount of money. What they don't understand is there's still going to be a divide in the society. There's still going to be an elite. There's still going to be an upper class.
It's going to exacerbate income inequality when this automation happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a given. Okay, the people behind the robots are going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, you just look at how technology's advanced through history, okay? There was a lot of people that lost their job in the candle industry when, the light bulb came out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you destroy the light bulb industry to protect those candle, industry jobs. This is how things go. You can't fight it.
I mean, the horse and buggy it's no longer out.
They're put out of business by automobiles.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it was a bad development that automobiles came. And that's why I try to look at automation with the positive viewpoint, because as much as, it's scary that so many people are going to lose their jobs, we can't foresee the positives that are going to come from all this.
And for every robot you build, someone's got to code it, someone's got to put it together, someone's got to do regular maintenance on it. You can't have robots doing those jobs, at least not, in the earlier years, in the earlier period. And by that I'm going to mean the first 7 or so years. If it breaks down, you got to go get a new one. You got to install it. You got to test it to make sure it works correctly. You'll have an entire industry around that, which doesn't exist right now, at least not to the levels it could be.
Well, as you pointed out, it's just a matter of time before robots design robots and computers design computers, and then they build them and all that kind of stuff too. So,
It's not a matter of a lot of time.
No.
I mean, we're talking 2030. That is 12 years from now.
Yeah.
It's not that long.
But like, you know, because we talk about the technological advancements in automation, you know, whenever we see them. Okay, I always like to talk about, you know, picking tomatoes and flipping burgers. Those robots are already there, and they're becoming a lot more economically viable as people are demanding higher wages for these things. Okay, when you're out there fighting for $15 minimum wages to work at Wendy's, you're, you know, making yourself not an economically viable asset to the company anymore. The robot, it doesn't need a wage. It doesn't need a break.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about getting time off. It doesn't get sick. It's not going to complain. It doesn't have a union.
Yeah, I'm hoping this curbs illegal immigration. I mean, if there's a lot of people thinking, hey, I can come up there and pick some fruit, and then maybe in 10 years they realize not even worth it anymore. They got robots to do it.
Well, you know, I know we're going to get to it here in a bit, but like, for instance, our student newspaper, someone wrote an article, at least I'm pretty sure it was ours. One of the same people that wrote one of the articles that we're going to talk about has written an article about that, about automation, saying that we should pass laws to where companies are not allowed to use automation because it would displace immigrant workers.
That's been the communist, you know, mindset for dating back to communism. Like, it's always about don't have machines because
Don't advance. That might leave people behind.
Don't use farming machines because then it puts people out of jobs, and then there's a massive famine and millions of people die. But that's just communism in a nutshell.
But like here's the thing with like using human labor. Like, I always, you know, like to go back to human labor in terms of slavery. At the end of the day, slavery in the United States was a failing industry because it was unsustainable. Okay? It's harder to pay, you know, to feed someone all the time and do all these different things. And at the end of the day, it was more efficient to replace this with actual paid labor and use machines instead of slaves. Okay? Don't hold back from, you know, removing the human element in, you know, picking vegetables, because we've done this before. It's going to be better afterwards.
And the one thing, you know, I like that you bring up the slavery aspect of it. In a way, a piece of automation actually increased slavery. The cotton gin, you know, think about it.
Yeah.
The cotton gin was designed to make it easier to pull out like the seeds and whatnot from your cotton. So a lot of people thought, if we get this, we won't need slaves to do this. Instead, they realized it was so efficient at what it did, you could plant twice as much cotton, which means you need twice as many slaves to be working the fields, grabbing it and then throwing it into the thing. So in a way, automation could lead to more jobs in the future, if you kind of understand where I'm coming from.
We don't understand the increase of potential capital growth that robots can give us.
And they say, oh, you know, that's going to replace all these jobs. It might replace those jobs, but if you can create one job for every job that gets replaced, you'll still employ people. So it's not that people are going to lose their jobs. It's they're going to have to find something different.
Yeah.
And it'll probably suck for the first 20 or so years before those new jobs start kicking in, if you kind of understand what I mean. You have to let these things fester, and then as time progresses, more and more will come out of it. It's going to suck for the first, you know, I know it's 20 years, probably more like 5. It's going to absolutely suck. And you're going to see a lot of back and forth about what should we actually what should we be doing to deal with this situation. And eventually you're going to come to something, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when computers first came into business. I mean, one of my first jobs was in 1990 selling computers over the telephone to businesses, right? And, you know, it was kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, my God, we're going to be, you know, switching these machines and not needing as many people. And I don't think anybody really ever said that happened. What it allowed them to do is do a lot more with those people that were there. But I don't think the PC revolution really replaced people in the offices. So I agree with you, and I love to hear you say that. We don't really know what the positive aspects. We can imagine all the negative aspects because our minds are full of that. But, you know, I think it's going to have some upsides as well.
That's why I just find automation so interesting. And it's going to be one of the biggest issues in the foreseeable future of politics that people are going to talk about. So even though it's not like the biggest thing to talk about now, it will be like 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to some immigration stuff. Well, actually, before we get into some immigration, I know, Sam, you got to go. I don't know what for. But
It's for a really interesting story. I know a lady whose younger brother went missing in South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And they just found the body and that kind of thing. So I'm going to run down and spend a little time with her and make sure she's doing okay.
That sounds very important. More important than what we're doing. But hope you enjoyed coming on for the bit that you did.
Oh, I really did. You guys, I am fascinated by the way you stay so on top of what's going on. Like I said, I keep my head kind of focused down here at the local government level. So I miss a lot of stuff. I hope I contributed something at least a little entertaining to it because it was real education for me. I appreciate it.
You got a broader perspective on life than us, obviously. So
you
know,
you just called me old, man.
You like a nice way to say it?
No,
but like I appreciate the perspective on things that you can see for us that have been on the earth for such a little time.
Yeah. No, I love what you're doing. Keep it up. You're doing a great job.
And you're welcome to come on again.
All right, beautiful.
Just whenever you feel like it, I guess.
Beautiful. All right.
Anything you want to
Thank y'all very
before
much.
you go?
No. Just keep the faith. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in this world. Even with these people like May and Rudy and all that kind of stuff, I think here in town we need to keep some sort of connection with them, right? Because we don't want this to escalate, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And it can easily. So, I'm all for let's keep moving the ball down the field. Let's realize that we have to live among these people too and give them the opportunity to do all the right things that we want them to do and not do some of those stupid things that we don't want them to do. That's it.
Well, once again, thank you coming on, Sam. Have a good one.
All right, y'all beautiful.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
Okay, so now with saying goodbye to Sam Brannon, let's get into the immigration news. The first thing that we have is a follow-up from something we talked about last week that I know you want to get into, Bobby.
Yeah, so last week on the show, we talked about how there was an ICE union that was unhappy with Trump and unhappy with the fact that there were a lot of like Obama holdovers that are still in ICE that are getting in the way of ICE doing their jobs. Trump has heard their grievances, and he said he's called a meeting with the ICE union personally with him and representatives to try to figure out these issues. So
he heard their grievances. He appreciates that they criticized him because everyone thinks he's so unbelievably egotistical, but he can take the criticism if it is constructive.
Yeah, and he wants
they have the same interest,
and he wants to meet with them, go over it, and figure out solutions to the problems they have.
So good stuff there. That'll be happening soon. Going on to the next thing, Trump says he's going to pull the U.S. from the UN Migration Compact, which is a non-binding political agreement in the UN that says we will work in tandem on migration issues. But he says, it doesn't fit with what he wants to do with America. It doesn't put America first. So we're not going to pretend to have these false pieties towards global institutions, and we're just getting out. So it's not like the Paris Climate Accords where things actually matter. There's no repercussions for leaving this, but I don't know. It's a good symbolic gesture, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing we want to talk about is there was a bakery in Chicago. They're called Clover Hill Bakery. They make the hamburger buns for McDonald's hamburgers. And there was recently an immigration raid out there that detained a third of its workforce. 800 of its employees, or 35% of their employees, were detained in a recent ICE raid out there on the bakery. So they're having a little problems filling up the vacancies that are there. But I'm okay with this happening. If you're not hiring Americans, I don't really care what are the repercussions that happen to your business.
Yeah, didn't you say there was also a sales decline or something because of that?
Yeah, there was a 7% decline in North American sales for the quarter ending in October.
Wow.
So 7% for their entire company, definitely they feel it. So, ICE is punishing the people it needs to. The next thing that we're going to go into is we're just kind of going to go off of the Kate Steinle thing, and we're going to go through a cavalcade of terrible things legal and illegal aliens did this week. Just so you know that we're not pulling shit out of our ass with Kate Steinle. These are things that happen all over the place. Just people need to acknowledge that they're happening. So, Bobby, you got the first story.
First story up is out of the Salt Lake Tribune. A 14-year-old Somali refugee who back in 2011 was 14 years old, raped 2 women in Utah at knife point. 6 years later, this week in fact, you know what punishment he was given?
What?
Probation.
Probation.
He even admitted he did, quote, very, very horrible things. He literally assaulted 2 women at knife point on consecutive nights in Salt Lake City. He attacked one woman who was standing outside her home. The following night, broke into another woman's home and assaulted her there before demanding she go to an ATM and withdraw $400 for him. And all this guy gets as punishment is probation. No jail term, nothing.
So the next story that we wanted to go into is there was an illegal alien, Jose Victor Chaparraro Senez, 38 years old. He was drunk driving on the night of Thanksgiving out in Lake Worth, which is a suburb of Fort Worth. And he crashed into a car and killed the 14-year-old girl, Ryan Moody. And, yeah. He allegedly ran a red light and was speeding when he crashed into the car. 2 other people were in the car, were also hurt along with him. So, good thing this guy came to the country.
Yeah, the world is a much, much better place with him in here.
Kate Steinle isn't even the only, young lady that is dead that we talked about today. Can you go into the next one? My mouse is being weird.
Yeah, sure. The next story we have is there was an illegal immigrant who attacked a Border Patrol officer, got released, and then went on to attack another Border Patrol officer 3 days later. It was Juan Carlos Perez Medina, 34, tried to cross the border on November 15th. He gave the officer who stopped him papers acknowledging he was detained, or he was denied entry in June of 2015. He then attacked the officer, was arrested, and then 2 days later tried to cross the border again. Multiple officers recognized him, took him into custody, and then he attacked them. So,
yeah, this guy's attacked border, agents, and this was out near San Diego where this happened. He attacked them on multiple occasions, sending their best. So the next story that I wanted to go into is there was an Iraqi immigrant out of Portland, Maine, Ali Ratib Daham, 40 years old, who this week pled guilty to $1.4 million worth of food stamp fraud.
From 2011 to 2016.
For 5 years, this guy got away with stealing over $1 million worth of, taxpayer dollars. This guy just came here to take it from us. Well, glad that he came here. So important that he came here. And the last story that we have is there is a Mexican national who has been deported from the U.S. 20 times, who's currently getting 35 years for assaulting 2 women. He pled guilty, this was in Oregon, to sodomy, kidnapping, sex abuse, and other charges in separate attacks of 2 different women. The guy's name is Sergio Jose Martinez. So, we just went through a cavalcade of different incidences, legal and illegal, predominantly illegal, of just horror story after horror story. This happens. But we're supposed to believe immigration is only good. It only makes us better. If we're a nation of immigrants, why would we be denying these people coming in? I don't know. Maybe they're making things worse. Okay, we didn't need this guy coming in to, Portland, Maine to steal from the taxpayers. We don't need these guys drunk driving and killing people. And we don't need guys, trying to shoot sea lions, apparently, on piers. We don't need any of these people. And there'd be people all alive today that didn't need to die if they never came to this country.
We don't need the vast majority of immigrants coming to this country right now.
Yeah.
And what we also don't need is their families, which is a segue to the next story we have, where apparently Mitch McConnell has actually come out in support of ending chain migration. So there's some good news.
Yes.
This was reported on by Senator David Perdue of Georgia, who you and me and so we've seen him speak.
Yeah, he's generally pretty good, too.
So he's really good. He said that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has support of ending chain migration, which people were questioning whether or not he'd try to, do anything to try to derail the efforts to end that. No, apparently he said he's actually fully on board. And this came after both David Perdue and Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas introduced the revised version of the RAISE Act back in August. Well, what you don't know is they're still debating parts of it. And in private closed doors, he's asked Mitch McConnell about it. And Mitch McConnell's like, yeah, I'm on board with this. We should get rid of chain migration. So
we wanted to go also coming off the tails of this into a recent study that we got from Numbers USA, which gives a lot of good information on patriotic immigration reform. Between 2005 and 2015, the United States resettled roughly 9.3 million new immigrants based on family ties, which is 70% of our total immigration. So that's all chain migration. All people that got to be sponsored because someone they knew got to come here. And we don't get to control for this.
No, if you say anything, you're a bigot.
Yeah. We don't get to choose who comes into our communities. And why not? It's going to be us who are affected by the change at the end of the day. But our interests don't matter, even though we're the constituencies of these communities. And they get mad at us when we get mad and we vote for someone like Donald Trump that actually addresses our qualms. I think maybe you should be, looking at the reality of things and looking at the people who actually matter, the constituents, and not these foreign nationals that are, killing us. So, any other thoughts on this stuff, or do you want to move on?
I think we should just move on.
Okay, let's go into some 2018 elections news. Continuing on with the Roy Moore stuff. How has the week been for Roy Moore, Bobby?
It's been
kind of quiet.
It's been a much more quiet week. All the other sexual scandals and stuff have kind of distracted. But there have been a few recent developments. So first off is there's a former Marine colonel named Lee Busby. He's launched a last-minute campaign as a write-in candidate to try to stop Roy Moore from winning.
Only as an upset candidate.
Exactly. Much like how, what's his face? Evan McMullen.
Yeah.
Or Egg McMuffin is my nickname for him. Much what he tried to do out in Utah back during last year's presidential election. So he's trying to be the spoiler candidate, or at least, steal enough votes from the Republican side so the Democrat side would win. This guy only exists. He's only doing this to try to get the Democrat elected. That's the only reason he's doing this.
Yeah.
He's not trying to actually win. I mean,
which it makes you wonder, why doesn't he just campaign for that guy? I mean, he's not too popular. That's the reason why.
I mean, Busby has admitted to attending a fundraiser for Doug Jones, although he denies that he's actually donated to him. But we know he supports him.
Yeah.
Roy Moore has been tweeting out pretty much every day. Like yesterday, I guess he didn't do one today since it's Sunday, but yesterday he did day 18 of attorney Gloria Allred's refusal to turn over her fake yearbook for third-party examination. He's been doing that every day.
It's good that he's staying on top of this stuff.
He's just reminding people. She just, every day they ask her to do it, and she won't turn it over.
And, people like Senator Al Franken really screwed the pooch for their strategy to stick all these sexual allegations on Roy Moore. Because when people, were seeing all the accusations against him, and then started seeing, Franken, and there was John Conyers, and all these different other politicians getting at the same time, not receiving the level of scrutiny he has, people realize there's an agenda behind this. And when people realize they're being lied to, they don't care what you say to them anymore. So, yeah. You want to get into some poll numbers, how it calls?
Well, actually, there's one story I did want to go. So, Do you remember the one woman that accused him of grabbing her ass while her mother was standing next to her?
Yeah.
That woman? Well, it's obvious that she did know him because he was, when he was the DA, he dealt with people. So, one of the court cases that he was dealing with them, an affidavit signed by that girl's mother while she was represented by Roy Moore accused the daughter of having a violent nature and notes that she had, quote, been treated by a psychiatrist when she was approximately 15 years of age. The woman also, several decades later, and as late as 2010, was arrested and pled guilty to felony charges relating to checks belonging to a family member. She also entered a court on a drug program. So this is a woman who has used drugs, who has been convicted of check fraud, and has a violent nature and was seeing a psychiatrist as a kid. And we're supposed to believe her when she all of a sudden come out and says, yeah, he touched my butt.
She's a woman, Bobby. You just have to believe them.
I know.
Why would they lie?
Why would they lie?
Why? Well, we know why. They just don't want Roy Moore elected. But, I don't know. Me Tooism, it's just a funny thing. Because they thought Me Tooism was going to be the stickler for Roy Moore, but it really, in the end, has screwed leftists way more.
I mean, there's only so many people, even if he did assault them, could assault.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to just say Me Too for 50 other girls. Unless he was
we're talking about accusations, all of things that happened 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Why am I supposed to believe this now when you're bringing this up right before one of the most important elections of the year?
Yeah,
if not the most important election that happens this year.
And he's been a public official for a long time. Like, you could have brought it up. It's not like, oh, for 40 years he was just a civilian, now he's running for, like, he's been a public official before. Like, you could have brought this up at any time.
The time to bring it up would have been a decade ago when he was the one who was dealing with that Ten Commandments case.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You could have brought that up right
You
there.
could easily discredit the guy, say like, oh, he's trying to be so virtuous, about the Bible. Look at how debauched he is. But they didn't.
And every single woman that has come forward has either not accused him of doing anything wrong, or the ones who did accuse him are blatantly lying or have history of lying.
Yeah.
Thank God he's still winning in the polls. There was a poll released Tuesday by Emerson College that shows that Roy Moore is up by 6. There was another poll, I didn't look it up, but it showed he was up by 7. Those are both released this week. I still think he's probably going to win anywhere between about 10 and 12 points. Definitely not the 18 that he was before the stuff.
Always remember, Trump won Alabama at 28 points.
Oh.
So it is very, very red.
Yeah, I was just looking on his Twitter, and he said he was quoting some study that said 71% of the Alabama voters realize this is not true.
Yeah.
And you still see polls where they try to show Jones ahead, and it just makes you wonder what kind of internals could you possibly
every single poll that I have seen that has it close or Doug Jones winning or tied has oversampled blacks and has oversampled Democrats.
Yeah.
Both of them. By large margins. Very large.
I just don't see any person that was going to vote for him all of a sudden now saying, I'm not going to vote for him anymore. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. So unless you're a political novice, it seems pretty apparent that Roy Moore is going to win.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why they've also scaled back in talking about him, too.
Yeah.
They realize the strategy's not working.
Plus, you go to his Twitter, and every day it's day 18, day 19 that you haven't done. You haven't.
He also said this week that he's not going to be campaigning for more like he said he would during the Luther Strange rally, which kind of disappoints me, but I'm okay with Trump keeping his name away from this. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to help him, especially right now when he's trying to negotiate this tax stuff. But he is holding a rally this next week in Pensacola, Florida, which is very close to Alabama. You could get there in like an hour. So I have a feeling he's going to talk about Roy Moore a little bit there. So
that, and the White House has also said that they are considering flooding Alabama with robocalls to try to help Roy Moore. So even though he's not going to directly campaign for him, it's clear the White House is wanting to try to help him win.
Yeah.
They're just not going to outwardly go there and be like, I'm Donald Trump standing on the stage next to him, vote for him. It's going to be like, here's
which I would have loved, but I'm fine with him standing away from the controversy, okay? It's about political capital. He doesn't want to lose political capital by being that close to Roy Moore right now. It just makes sense. But other than that, you have any other Roy Moore stuff you want to move on?
No, let's move on.
Okay, so the next story we have is Representative Luis Gutierrez from the Chicago area is not seeking re-election.
Yeah, this is a guy who's like always wanting amnesty and all that sort of stuff.
You also, if you watch the little thing they did on the articles of impeachment they introduced, he was one of the guys that talked. All he really talks about ever, though, is amnesty, because his constituency is like something like 75% Hispanic or something.
Yeah, I forgot who I was listening to, but they were saying how this is probably good news that amnesty isn't coming anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because if this dude was the biggest proponent of it, he would not be stepping down if he saw it coming sometime soon.
He'd be staying in to help give the vote to them.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
the place is like super, blue, so it's gonna go to.
It's a D
Democrat
plus
anyways.
33 district.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of doesn't
On the
matter
west
that
side
he's
of
there.
Chicago.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't matter that he's there or not, but just him being a big proponent of amnesty, stepping down, I don't know, it looks good.
We also have that Texas Representative Joe Barton says he's not going to be seeking re-election. Now, the reason he's not going to be seeking re-election is because he is the victim, not the person who did the crime. He's the victim of what's the word they use? It's revenge porn. Yeah, an angry ex-girlfriend or ex-wife or someone, I think it was actually an ex-girlfriend, released a nude photo of him.
Ooh.
Which, was consensually sent.
Yeah, but you
Between
still
each
had
other.
it.
It's not like he was some pervert that like, ooh, here's a picture of my
Yeah,
dad.
yeah.
No, it was like a consensual, like, they were dating at the time. She sent him pictures of herself as well. It's what they did. Yeah. And this was back from, like, a long time ago. But anyways, so he said he's not going to seek re-election because of that.
Ouch.
He did nothing wrong, keep in mind. If anything, they said, and this was back, like I said, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So...
You got to be careful he sends stuff, too.
Yeah. The picture itself was more recent, but the relationship had been for a long time.
But that's another seat here in Texas now that's going to be up for, open combat to get that seat.
And he's been in office since 1985. That is an R+9 district, so it's not going to be...
Probably going to stay to the Republicans.
The area of Texas you're wondering is the city of Arlington and also just south of Dallas itself.
So the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Dallas-Fort Worth area, but like specifically Arlington and southern Dallas there.
Yeah.
So that's the district.
So when we do, our focus on the primaries, which, coming into 2018, we're going to do...
It's going to be here before we know it, dude.
Yeah. Me and Bobby, we're going to be going extensively into every single primary election. We're going to go through the states. Texas is up there first, pretty much.
What we're going to be doing is we're going to go in order of when the primaries are.
Yeah.
And what we'd like to do is time it so that we release each month about a month before that month's primary.
So if you don't know and you live in that place, we'll show you who you want to vote for.
So the Texas primary is March 6th, right? So we'd release this, say February 6th, whatever the Wednesday is that's closest to February 6th, that's when that one's going to go out.
Yeah. So just a heads up.
And
on
the
our
same
future
thing with
plans.
like every other primary and
we might also be getting that up, in some sort of written form. Maybe we'll post it on the internet because it's important information. You can spread it around and let's drain the swamp.
Yes.
Going to the next thing, Pelosi is now saying that she believes that John Conyers should resign.
Yeah. And if you remember last week, she said that he was a hero or something like that when they asked him, because John Conyers has been accused of sexual assault himself.
And covering up, all these sexual allegations with taxpayer funds.
Right. And now Nancy Pelosi apparently has shifted her viewpoint, saying that he should, in fact, step down. So...
Which goes
the
on
pressure got to her.
Yeah, which goes on to just, an added thing to that. John Conyers says he's not seeking re-election in 2018.
Which is good.
Yeah, a guy who's been in the Congress for way too long. He's stepping out. Now, that place is still very solid, D, very solid Democrat.
That's also a D plus 33 district.
Yeah. So
and he's in Michigan. If you're wondering where...
It's the Detroit area.
It is the Detroit area.
So it's staying, that seat's going to stay with the Democrats. But, at least he's gone, I guess. That's fine.
Yeah.
And the last story we have is about Representative Blake Farenthold. Said that very wrong.
Yeah. Keep going.
And how he used a congressional slush fund to settle sexual harassment claims. So similar to things that John Conyers was doing.
Right. Last week on the show, we talked about how the House of Representatives has like a budget, and part of their budget that they get, of which they pass, says this is House budget money that the House of Representatives can use.
Like each guy is allotted, money to spend in how he sees. Does he want to hire staff members? Mm-hmm. Does he want to spend it on relations with his constituents? It's up to him.
Exactly. And so that exists. There's nothing wrong with having that. The problem is we're not able to audit those, and that's where a lot of people use that to pay off their like sexual harassment claims and stuff like that. Well, his was unmasked, and it turns out that back in 2014, he used $84,000 of his money that was allotted to him to pay off and settle a sexual harassment claim brought by his former spokesman, which means that he's the only known person of Congress who has been caught so far using that money. And obviously last week we said other people have been using that money as well. It's a very, like, everyone knows it type of situation. But he's the first one to actually come out to where we know for a fact he used it from that fund. So yeah, hopefully he resigns or says he's not going to run again, because not good stuff. But yeah, that's what we got for the elections, and we're only going to do one story for other, because we want to save some time for current year college craziness, because we got one of the best current year college craziness segments we've probably ever done coming up. And actually, before we do that, I just want to say where that his district is.
Yes.
Blake Theron told Texas 27th District, R+13, so we don't have to worry about that flipping blue if he does resign. That's in the Corpus Christi and Lockhart area along the coast.
Okay.
So not too far from us, the northern edge of it.
No, I've been to Corpus many times.
Anyways, I just wanted to put that in before we move on. So the only story we want to do for the bottom of the stack is interesting stuff. It looks like the FBI is investigating Antifa. Federal domestic terrorism investigators are probing a number of people animated by kind of an Antifa ideology. FBI Director Christopher Wray told lawmakers Thursday, quote, "We do have a very active domestic terrorism program," Wray told the House Homeland Security Committee. "And while we're not investigating Antifa as Antifa, that's an ideology, and we don't investigate ideologies. We are investigating a number of what we call anarchist and extremist investigations, where we have probably predicted subjects of people who are motivated to commit violence, criminal activity on kind of an Antifa ideology." So, we're not necessarily going after the ideology. We're going after people in Antifa that are either going to or have committed violence or are possibly or are engaged in criminal activity, which we should be doing. Yeah, obviously.
So it's good that we're seeing some movement on there. I mean, the federal government understands what Antifa is doing. They're trying to sow public disorder. They want to openly attack people because they feel like, their violence is speech and other people's speech is violence. And they feel so, self-righteous and justified to do it. So, they feel so self-righteous. I mean, have fun trying to fight this state, you anarchist shits, because you're not going to win. Any other thoughts on that?
The second part of the story, you want to say that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. This is only up for like a day.
Yeah, this has already been taken down.
Yeah,
so.
But Walmart was looking to sell Antifa apparel. Like, they're going to sell in their stores Antifa sweaters. An ideology that the FBI is looking into animated individuals pertaining to that ideology. Walmart says, like, oh, that's something we need to get behind and selling.
Funny also how, like, the number one, store they always hate with capitalism is going to be selling
capitalism wants
their apparel.
Yeah.
But they're not anymore. So
yeah, there's tons of backlash.
Tons of backlash. No, we're not doing this. We're not doing
that. Was kind of stupid for them to even have that idea in the first place.
Like, you don't see them, like, wanting to sell Trump memorabilia, and, like, there's much more of a market for that. And I wouldn't blame them if they sold Trump or Hillary stuff. Yeah. But Antifa, that's not a brand you really want to sign yourself up to so much. So, with that said, let's go into some current year college craziness.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy. Die, cis, scum.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, the segment of the show that keeps on giving, the segment of the show where we talk about the crazy stuff happening on college campuses every single week, here and abroad, but predominantly here because we got the colleges that are the most craziest. And for the first and most craziest story probably this week, we are going to our own college to look into a big controversy that's consumed the entire college.
This is the first time we've ever had something from our campus.
Yeah.
And it's huge!
And it's people I know, which makes it very interesting. But, so this week, there was and we're all holding the newspapers.
Physical copies of these newspapers we have in our hands here.
In the student newspaper that we have at Texas State, the University Star, there's an opinion piece released by a Rudy Martinez, who I personally know. He's an open communist. He was arrested at the Disrupt J20 riots at the inauguration, so good company.
Maybe the FBI go after him.
So in a subsection called Whiteness, there's an article in this paper that says, your DNA is an abomination. That's the name of the article.
And it's got a big picture that says, white is over if you want it.
Yeah. So, Bobby, why don't you read it for us, and if we just have any comments, we'll stop you. We'll just go through the entire thing.
We're going to read
Feel free to interrupt.
This is an entire article, so if you're listening, keep in mind this is going to be wordy. So first off, quote, "Now I am becoming white, the destroyer of worlds. When I think of all the white people I've ever encountered, whether they've been professors, peers, lovers, friends, police officers, etc., there is perhaps only a dozen I would consider decent. My colleague Tafari Robertson, in his brilliant column named Debunking the Myth of the White Majority, already exposed whiteness in the United States as a construct used to perpetuate a system of racist powers. This column functions, however, within a different definition of whiteness. To be white in the United States is to be a descendant of those Europeans who chose to abandon their identity in search of something new. Stolen land. Racial categories, white, black, brown, red, etc., are used to subjugate non-white people. This bending of semantics upholds a white supremacist society. As someone quote-unquote white, whether you know it or not, regardless of your socioeconomic standing, you benefit from privilege. In Texas, a bizarre state I have now inhabited for 4 years, I continuously meet individuals that either deny the existence of white privilege or fail to do something productive with it."
Okay, let me stop you there. So he talks about how whiteness, I guess it's the ideology of being white, it's a construct. So, a social construct, something that isn't physical, used to perpetuate a white supremacist America. But still, at the same time, it's a construct, but it's also founded in DNA. Your DNA is an abomination, which wouldn't be a construct. DNA isn't a construct. So right there, you're already confused. Like, what is he talking about?
It's the party science.
It's confusing people because he talks about, he always puts white in quotations as though it is, a social construct. It's something that is not physically tangible. But then he says that there are individuals that have their white privilege, whether they acknowledge it or not, so he presumes upon them whiteness, which kind of makes white privilege and white supremacy a construct of his mind, and not something demonstrable through, like, empiricism, but
I like the end where he says, fail to do something.
Do you have any thoughts about what we talked about?
That's what I was going to say, the end of what we just talked about.
Oh, I thought you were saying
where he says, white privilege or fail to do something productive with it. What do you mean productive with it?
Use your white privilege.
Use your white privilege
help
to
non-whites?
disenfranchise whites.
Okay.
That's what he wants. That's what I imagine
He's
he
like,
wants.
hey, you have white privilege. Do something with that.
You have white privilege.
Go get a
So-
pizza?
Yeah, and that's kind of what he's referring to in the next paragraph or so. He's going on to pretty much say that, like...
Go on with the next paragraph.
I'll read it, okay. "A lot of you tell me, upon my insistence that whites should have an active role within activist circles, that you, quote, didn't choose to be white. You were not born white. you became white. You actively remain white. You are estranged from yourself, and in that absence, you have been instilled with an allegiance to a country that was never great. One that has continuously attempted to push non-whites into non-existence through crusades that have been defended by the law.
Let's stop you there again. So now, you're not born white, but in the prior paragraph, he talks about you being white whether you know it or not, but you're not born white, you became it. You choose to be white.
And keep in mind, the title is called Your DNA is an Abomination.
So, are white people tangible or not? Are we an ideological construct that can be abandoned because we're oppressors upholding white supremacy? Or are white people just the descendants of Europeans? I don't know.
You're born with your DNA. If that makes me an abomination, then my DNA is white. I'm born white.
Your DNA is an abomination. You know, you think that's the subject, but now we're going on to, DNA is tangible. We're going on to social constructions of, race and whatnot. So, weird stuff. It seems very inconsistent and very, feelings-based.
Hey, at least he hasn't gotten to the bad stuff of the article.
Well, I'm curious, though, what would happen if someone did choose to be white? How would he view those people?
I choose to be white.
They see
Yeah, if I had a choice...
I've gotten my 23andMe results. I am 99.9% white.
Dude, I wouldn't even be close to that. I'd be, probably less than half or around half.
So are you half
You
an
can't
abomination,
choose
then?
to be white.
I mean, I guess
Unless
I technically
you choose
can.
to be, and then you're
I'm half, so I guess technically I do choose to be white.
So
I could choose to be Hispanic, Latino, but I don't. I choose to be white.
So are you oppressed?
You're partially.
Do you oppress yourself?
Half of the week I'm oppressed.
Partially an abomination.
Every Thursday.
Yeah, half of me is an abomination. My upper half is an abomination.
The women don't complain about the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay. In your whiteness, you are granted the luxury of not having to think about race daily. Can we stop right there real quick?
Yeah.
We don't have to think about race daily. The fuck is the point of this article?
As we're accused of having white privilege daily.
Yeah. I'll continue. Your heartbeat does not speed up when you get pulled over and find yourself staring at the red and blue lights of the fascist foot soldiers we call the police.
Stop there again.
Bitch! I've only gotten pulled over once, and I had to freak the fuck out.
I haven't been pulled over because I drive well, but
I've been pulled over twice, both not intending to speed. They're both in little towns and speed traps, and I can tell you, my heart rate does rise when I get pulled over because I don't want to get in trouble.
This guy really speaks for white people, though, very well.
Exactly.
He knows what the experience is.
He knows that when whites get pulled over, they're like, it's okay, I'm white, I'll just talk to the cop.
I'll just give him a little wink and say, hey, buddy, you white?
He'll walk up to the window and be like, oh, shit, you're white, I'm sorry, sir. And then, turn around and go back. And then you
keep reading, Bobby.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh,
you don't leave your home wondering if you will ever come back. You don't give a damn.
What?
Apparently non-whites worry about not coming back home?
Yeah, when they get in the car, they're just like, I wonder if I'm ever going to get back. There's cops that are fascist foot soldiers in this city.
They might pull me over.
They might pull me over and my heartbeats will race.
The oppressive world you have built, through the exploitation of millions, and the waging of barbaric wars against one another, is coming apart at the seams. Through the current political climate in which a white supremacist inhabits the White House.
A white supremacist.
A white supremacist inhabits the White House. And those of his ilk would try to prove otherwise. I see white people as an abomination.
Aberration.
That too. Through a constant ideological struggle in which we aim to deconstruct whiteness and everything attached to it, we will win.
Yeah, hold on. I don't think any of these people actually know any white supremacists. Because if you think Trump is a white supremacist, you're an idiot.
Yeah, a white supremacist wouldn't let his daughter marry a Jewish man.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about what white supremacists believe, wanting to gas all the Jews and stuff. He's not a good example of white supremacy.
No,
Trump's a pretty bad white supremacist.
He wouldn't fit in the club.
Can I continue the story?
Wait, I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
So he's talking about how we need to aim to deconstruct whiteness. So we're going back to how whites are a social construct. But going back to the title, your DNA is an abomination. Are we going to deconstruct the DNA along with it, or are we going to go into our DNA strands and pull out the abomination part? And
no, they want to breed you out of existence.
DNA is not a social construct, but they keep using whiteness as a social construct. You got to pick one, people.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't specifically called for white death yet. That's 3 more paragraphs to go.
Yeah, continue on.
Whiteness will be over because we want it to be. And when it does, there will be millions of cultural zombies aimlessly wandering across a vastly changed landscape.
Okay, let's stop it again. Whiteness will be over because we want it to be.
What does that mean?
Who is we?
Yeah, Drew, who is we, and what does that mean?
Does this mean that we're just gonna kill all white people?
Notice that whiteness is not in quotes in that part.
Are we gonna, now whiteness isn't in quotes.
So is he talking about DNA as in white people that are born white need to be gone? Or
the stuff that makes people white, the lack of melanin. We're gonna inject everyone with melanin, and then we'll live in racial harmony. And when it dies, which now it's like an abstract. When it dies, there will be millions of culturalist zombies aimlessly wandering across a vastly changed landscape. So, like,
you're telling me that they don't know what they're going to do once white people are gone? They're going to be like,
I mean, that is pretty much planet Earth.
Like. I think like we're going to deconstruct whiteness to the point where we're just going to tell like white people like, you're deconstructed now, so wander the landscape, waiting to die, as all of us enlightened brown people make America great.
Keep doing what we've been doing in Central and South America.
I just want you to wander around. Just maybe give up your privilege to us. I don't know.
Or use your privilege to give it to us.
Use your privilege to give us some, because we want it. I don't know.
Wait, if white privilege is given to non-whites, doesn't that make it non-white privilege?
I don't know.
What kind of privilege would it be?
Is it white privilege anymore, or is it just privilege?
We need
is it privilege that just happens to go to white people?
At that point, if the non-whites have the privilege and the whites don't have the privilege, aren't whites then oppressed?
Bobby, now I am white, the destroyer of worlds.
The destroyer of worlds. Now I am white, the creators of civilization that goes to the moon. Like,
read the last 2 paragraphs.
Okay. Ontologically speaking, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Ontologically speaking, white death will mean liberation for all.
Okay.
Except whites.
What the hell, dude? Like, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
White death?
White death will mean liberation for all.
I want white death. I want whites to wander as culturalist zombies across the world until there's white death. Like, who the fuck is this guy? I'll tell you who the fuck this guy is. I know who this guy is, okay? Rudy Martinez. Rudy Martinez. He's like a little scrawny fuck.
Why am I not surprised?
He's a little scrawny, scrubby little fuck.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
I remember one time, this was years ago, he was tabling with Bobcats for Bernie, and he knew I was part of the Libertarian organization, so he wanted to make some small talk to me. And he said, libertarianism, that's like old white people, isn't it? So I said to him, you mean like Bernie Sanders? And he just...
Oh my god. Everything's
and
wasted.
He's just like, oh no, the guy that like I support's white.
An old white person. Why is everything race to these people? Like, if the first
Bernie Sanders is definitely an old guy.
If the first thing you think of libertarianism is old white people, what? Like, I mean, that's like not even close to the first thing I would think of when I think of libertarianism. Like,
he wasn't talking to an old white person, so.
I mean, the left makes everything about race, like.
But like I went to like a couple of those Bobcat for Bernie meetings, and like he would have his little notepad, and he would give little reports on things happening amongst the workers across the world and stuff.
Fag,
and like
dude, little notepad.
I remember asking him in that little conversation we had there. It was just like, so he was like, I'm a communist, and I was like, oh, so you're a communist. So if you had the means of production, what would you do with them? And he said to me, well, it's really romanticized. So, and like he bases his entire life off of being a communist, and he doesn't know what he's gonna really do with the means of production.
I'll tell you what he's gonna do. He's gonna make millions of people starve, like what communism has done.
you read this article and you're like, fuck, this guy has it right. Let's give him everything. He understands what we need to do. Give him all of the means of production. America will cease to be a country because he's so incompetent.
And he knows better than we do.
This guy, he works at like a coffee house.
Of course he does.
That's all he does. He's just a coffee guy.
Yeah.
He sells people beer, and he's working in the capitalist system.
You can read this article. You can read this article, and you know, okay, this guy is physically a joke, mentally incompetent, and you know this guy probably works at a coffee shop or some other hipster location. Like you know this just by reading this.
Yeah, I didn't need to tell you that, but I do know this guy, so I'll tell you that. But was there a little bit?
Yeah, one more paragraph.
One more paragraph. To you good-hearted liberals, apathetic nihilists, and right-wing extremists, accept this death as the first step towards defining yourself as something other than the oppressor.
What?
Read the last part.
Here's my favorite quote in the whole fucking story. Until then, remember this. I hate you because you shouldn't exist. You are both the dominant apparatus on the planet and the void in which all other cultures, upon meeting you, die.
I hate you because you shouldn't exist.
White people shouldn't exist.
Well, see, here's what I want to know, because like someone like me who's half, what does he think of me? I look white. So does he see me and just go, I shouldn't exist?
I'll tell you something about Rudy Martinez. He looks white too.
Yeah, why am I not surprised?
This is the thing, like, he's very white-presenting Hispanic, so he's probably gotten a lot of shit throughout his life for, not being Hispanic enough, which is why he's very vehemently anti-white. Because it gets to him, because he doesn't want to be associated with that, because in his Marxist circles, that's like being lesser. Even though they're, we're the white supremacists, it's lesser in his circles, so that's why it pisses him off.
I mean, it's funny because this article starts off like, he tries to be like intellectual, like, going down the list of this, that. And then at the end it just goes, remember this, I hate you because you shouldn't exist. Like, dude, like, do you need to, like, have a timeout somewhere? Like, this is pretty extreme at the end of this, man. Like,
could you imagine just going up to anyone, no context, and just telling them, I hate you because you shouldn't exist?
Like, if this guy,
they'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
I guarantee you, this little loser would never say this to anyone's face. Like,
no.
if this guy would go up to just like some guy in the quad and just be like, you shouldn't exist. Like, I hope this kid does that. I really do.
If this guy went up to like a white person and it's like, you shouldn't exist, all the guy has to say back to him is like, well, what are you gonna do about it? Gonna write about it in your little opinions column?
Well, he
gonna
can't
write about it
because he's been fired.
Gonna do a little article?
A little journal?
A little journal? This fucking guy. It does crack me up, and it's also extremely sad. But like, I'm laughing.
Yeah, it's funny
because it's all.
You know why we laugh? You know why we laugh and we don't burn things and break windows and vandalize things? Because we're not like them. We read this and we laugh.
Yeah.
If this was written about any other race,
okay, so it made me a little mad because.
Oh yeah, like
how did this get published?
Yeah,
I'm holding a physical copy that says your DNA is an abomination, and it's talking about me. I shouldn't exist. Now I am white, the destroyer of worlds. That would be a good tagline for me.
We need to make a T-shirt of that, dude. That would be a pretty good T-shirt.
Destroyer of worlds.
Dude, I would wear that.
No, but anyways, to go to your question, I guess now we can kind of pivot to like just the outrage that we've seen in this area because of this.
Yeah.
I have never seen the campus so united against something.
Everyone hates this.
There have been some events on campus recently that have divided people, but this much, much more so. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people that, are alumni saying, I'm going to stop sending money to the university because they allowed this to happen.
Yeah, as they should.
Yeah.
As they should.
And there are people out there who even said, my son or daughter is considering going to Texas State. Not anymore.
Yep.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I've seen tons.
And so,
many alums saying they're not going to donate anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And our student body president, Connor Clegg, he has actually called a meeting of the president of the university, the entire editorial staff, and the student government to say, look, I want these people fired. I want Rudy Martinez, who wrote this article, fired. I want May Olivera Hers, who is the opinions editor, who allowed it to be published. Mm-hmm. She is also a communist.
Yes.
Her Twitter handle, which she's now put her tweets on protected ever since this came out.
Interesting.
There are screenshots of some very anti-white tweets that she has posted as well. So people ask, how is this able to get published? Because the editor who is in charge of allowing things to get published agrees with him.
Yeah, I know May as well. I mean, I remember seeing these people holding, communist protests outside the Wendy's in town because,
I've been to those. Yeah. I walked up and talked to them. There it is.
It's something. But yeah, you can see them there. Now, the last person they're calling to be fired is Denise Cervantes, who I don't know about.
She's the
editor
of the newspaper.
So, she had to see the article before it was published as well.
Yeah, and here's the thing I was getting to, though. Connor Clegg, our student body president, has called on them all to resign or be fired. He said if they do not, he is going to use the student government's, he's going to call a vote, and the student government actually has the ability to do this. So before I say it, they have the ability to do this.
Nice.
Currently, these newspapers, which we're all physically holding copies in our hand, is paid for using our tuition dollars.
Yep.
He was saying we should make it so that that's not covered by tuition dollars. If they want to be able to print and sell newspapers or run their website, they should sell subscriptions like most newspapers
I agree.
Or put more advertisements.
But then no one would subscribe to this.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, don't they pay these people too? They pay the writers, don't they?
I believe so.
I believe so.
These papers, the University Star, the campus newspaper, its image has been so tarnished now.
Yep.
That if you did pull their funding,
this is like in Texas, the biggest story that's happened.
It was in national news,
It was covered on Fox News by fucking Greg Gutfeld.
Yeah.
It was covered in the Washington Examiner and another. I think
I've seen it all over, and I have to see my school's name besmirched because of one communist. Well, a collection of communists.
Yeah.
As it usually is.
But there's so many more people out there that agree with this, though, and that's a problem too.
Well, in the comment sections, I would say, looking around, it's like 85-90% like against, and then 10% is like it has great points. Wow, what profound writing. You people that are white, you just feel targeted. You didn't take the time to understand.
Now you know how it feels.
This is really indicative of your white privilege.
And I saw a lot of people.
We're so privileged that we get to write, hate articles about all the other races, don't we, Bobby?
Yeah, imagine if
in
we
the
had,
school paper. We're so privileged we get to do that.
Now I become Black, the destroyer of worlds. Now I become Latinx, the destroyer of worlds.
By Cecil Rhodes. Let's see that one.
Yeah, ontologically speaking, Black death will mean liberation for all. Ontologically speaking, Latinx death will mean liberation for all.
Bobby, look at all the institutional power we have. We get to publish articles about how we want to, kill all the non-whites all the time. Don't we do this, Bobby?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
No, we don't. But this is the thing. They're talking about us as though we do, but these communists are the ones that have the power to do so.
And they are communists. I was going to say, I have seen so many people. You bring up the fact that they're communists. You have to point out the fact that they are communists.
Self-admitting.
And all that does to the people that are outside the situation, that are kind of wishy-washy on the issue, they think Red Scare. Yeah. They think, you're being a McCarthyite here.
Oh, you're just being crazy. Even though I personally know the people.
The guy was interviewed in one of his fucking, I think it was the Washington Examiner piece, was interviewed by them. They contacted him. And he says, I'm a devout Marxist. Yeah. I believe these things. Self-proclaimed communists, all of them. So when you point out the fact that these people are communists, it's because they are. And they agree with this message. And you need to hammer that into everyone's thick fucking skulls in order to change anything.
And the thing about them being communists is in the past, you look at communism, it's not a racial thing. It's just about class struggle. Okay? It's about the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. But now, to this demented form of Marxism, which Marxism already was pretty demented, now it's like racial class consciousness. Mm-hmm. Now it is, the working workers of the world don't include white people because they have privilege. So, we all need to unite together to have white death so we're all liberated.
And I got news for you. If you're a journalist writing a newspaper at a college university being paid to do so, you are not the proletariat. You're attending a university.
You're in history, you are one of the most privileged people to exist.
Of all time, yeah.
Yes.
And it's funny, too, because this article wasn't meant to be controversial.
No.
This was just a normal article in the
They
University
thought
Star.
it was just going to go by like anything
Like,
else.
if it wasn't for anyone reading this and going, whoa, did you guys see this? Nothing would have happened. This would have just been like a normal day. They would have kept writing this. Who knows? Like, this would have given them, they could have said like, oh yeah, we can keep doing stuff like this.
Well, here's the thing. You know, they didn't post this article online, but they do post a lot of articles online. Like, Rudy has written multiple articles about Marxism.
Yeah.
In, the University Star.
Professors talk about this.
Yeah.
Professors talk about Marxism. They always are like, oh, Marxism gets a bad rap. It's a dirty word. Like, I wonder why. Like, they're just open about it.
I think what I'm going to do when I graduate here in 2 weeks, I'm going to design my cap and gown. You know how people do that in their caps?
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to take this newspaper, cut a little hole in the middle for the tassel, and stick that on top.
No, you should just write on the top, like, I am
White
white destroyer for us.
I'm going to keep using this, dude.
But seriously, though, I mean, I think we've gotten to the point at this point talking about it.
I kind of only want to do this story for Community College Craziness. I really feel like nothing.
There's not going to be anything better.
Rival this.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, I've already hit the delete button and everything else.
Okay. So, I don't know. Let's do a final statement on this article.
Okay.
Lance, what's your final statement on this article? Pronostication.
I mean, I don't even know what more to say. I mean, white people, they created the civilization you enjoy today. Sorry.
My final thing, they say whites don't have a right to exist. Whites have a right to exist. It's okay to be white. Don't hate yourself. That's all I have to say.
Last thing I want to say about this article is, my DNA is not an abomination. Rudy Martinez, maybe yours so. I don't know. Because, you're a little communist bugman freak. Like, no one gives a shit about you, dude. Fucking fight me.
And we saw the videos of he was interviewed by one of the TV stations in Austin. Came down to campus and they're interviewing him, and he's just sitting there like, I agree with what I said. I didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah, he's like really funnily like smug.
If you look,
interviews.
Like, I don't like to make fun of people for their looks, but the dude looks like he's so weird.
See, I love these people because like they'll write this all day long, but like, what are you going to do if these people actually did just snap? Like, what are you going to do? You're just going to hide? Like, I still agree with this. Okay, well, you're going to get punched in the face. Like, they can get away with this because they know, like, they're surrounded by other Marxists that just think, like, oh, yeah, this is okay.
Or, like, a better question is, like, do they think they have any, like, ability to get a regular job now that they put their name to this shit?
Yes,
no.
They do. Dude, they believe this.
Salon.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe Salon or HuffPost.
Dude, like, make no mistake, the University Star does not fundamentally disagree with that article. They just don't like that there's backlash. Mm-hmm. Plenty of newspapers
in the responses that they gave, you can get that sentiment from it.
No, like,
they don't really feel sorry that they put it out there.
No.
They said this article is there to give a discussion about
a discussion you don't deserve to exist.
We apologize that it has been interpreted the way that it's been interpreted.
Yeah, a discussion about white identity or something like that.
Like, okay, saying,
and then they also,
I hate you because you shouldn't exist. That's not a discussion.
Your DNA is an abomination. You are white, destroyer of worlds.
A discussion would be, let's talk about white people. And not, I hate you because you shouldn't exist.
Yeah, if you want to write an
that's
article
not
talking
a discussion.
about like how the justice system disproportionately affects blacks, therefore underrepresents whites, or something like that.
Let's talk about
and then do stuff like that here and there. Then it's like, okay, I know you don't really like me, but like at least you're using some points and pointing out some flaws.
It's like we're not having a discussion. You just hate me, and you openly said it.
And you want me to die, and you're going to be happy when I am.
So it's, I don't know.
Anyways,
let's take a short little break. We'll come back. We got a little bit for international news, and then we'll get out of here. Hey, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into some international news, starting off with the Middle East. We got some stuff about what's going on in Israel. So, Bobby, did you see the stuff happening, with the missile strikes back and forth yesterday?
I heard about it. It wasn't something that I followed. It's kind of been buried in U.S. media, so not too much.
Yeah, so as of yesterday, the Israeli military took some, war jets, and they bombed some areas near Damascus. And apparently they also fired some missiles at some, Iranian bases in Syria. And I believe there's been missiles returned at Israel. So, situation there is getting a little heated. Definitely don't really want to get involved personally as an American in the situation, but I don't know, with stuff as far as Israel, we're probably going to end up having to go help them out there. So I'm not really happy about this, that they're picking fights with Syria. You know, the Syrian civil war pretty much just ended.
Yeah.
I want the controversy to stop out there. Let's just stop killing people. I don't know, is that controversial? But no. I guess we're shooting at each other now out there again. So we'll have to see what comes from that.
Hopefully it's a one-time thing, but I doubt it. I really do.
Yeah, we'll have to wait on the developments on that, though. The other thing we want to get into, which is also pertinent to Israel, is the U.S. has now recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which is kind of controversial because it's like a shared capital of the Palestinians. Usually they have to claim Tel Aviv is their capital. And I believe the United States is the only nation to recognize Jerusalem.
I believe so. I mean, when Trump
Jerusalem as the capital.
Yeah, when Trump was running, he talked about wanting to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I think that plan fell through. I don't think that actually happened. But
it's a lot easier to say than do.
Yeah, there's lots of logistical stuff about that. But this is just...
I guess that's a movement in that direction with this, though.
I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about this, per se. I guess I'm all right with it. If anything, it's just going to piss off everybody else, which at this point, who cares?
Like knowing you're Israel, like Tel Aviv is like the San Francisco of Israel. It's it has like the biggest gay community in the world, like percentage-wise, is in Tel Aviv. Jerusalem is much more conservative. So, like, understanding the dynamics of like how politically these cities see themselves, like it's a change in that direction. But I mean, Israel itself sees Jerusalem as its capital. So,
and most Christians will see Jerusalem as the capital. Most Jews will see Jerusalem as the capital. Most Muslims don't. So that's pretty much who you're.
Most of them don't recognize Israel's existence. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point.
And Israelis don't really see Palestinian existence as a thing either. So it's really contentious. They don't really get along so well. But I don't know. Most people know that.
But yeah, that's all we have for Middle East.
Yeah, let's move on to some Europe stuff, and we're going to close out the show with some Europe stuff. Not a lot of international news. We cut some. So the first thing we want to talk about is these like Muslim attack Britain first videos that Trump retweeted this week.
So Jada Franzen, who is the deputy leader of Britain First, which is a kind of a right-wing British political party that doesn't really want Muslims to be there.
I followed Britain First for like probably like 8-9 years or something.
But anyways, so what she did, Jada that is, she had some videos on her Twitter feed of Muslims just attacking random people in Britain, random British people for no reason.
Wasn't one of them was Dutch people?
Yeah, but Muslims attacking, I should say, people in Europe.
Yeah.
One of the people even died in the video. And Trump retweeted 3 of them the other day in the morning.
And
didn't do anything else, didn't say anything, just retweet.
There's a lot of backlash. Like they're mad that he showed these videos. It's hateful to show people attacking people. The real victims are the Muslims. When you show Muslims attacking people, it's not the victim in the videos. No one gave a shit about that.
No, but there's been so much backlash from Britain too. Like there are some British politicians who even called for Trump to not even come to the UK ever. You see what I'm saying?
I think they called for him to be arrested if he stepped foot in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and some guy who's the mayor of some town in Britain somewhere was like, I don't want Trump to ever come to my town again. And I was like, good. I don't want Trump to go to your town either because you sound like an asshole.
So Trump kind of just said I don't really care. I don't need to come to England.
But
you do you, we'll do us.
But let's not ignore the very important message of what Trump actually did there. He acknowledges that the Islamization of Europe, the Islamization of Britain, is a very big problem. And it's destroying
It's bringing conflict.
It's bringing conflict. It's destroying their culture and their societies. There's the reason why they have so many problems that they have right now. He's acknowledging that, yeah, I understand this is the issue at heart here. And even though I'm not really doing anything to affected, I'm with you and I understand you, and don't forget that.
And I'm against psychoanalysis in general, but, let's understand the psychologization of the people that are mad that he tweeted this out. Okay, if there's a video where a guy, one of them, was someone that was, handicapped, I believe it was. That was the Dutch one. So someone comes up to a handicapped person and beats them up, and you don't empathize with the victim? Which, leftists are all about empathizing with the victims. But I guess when the victim is a white person at the hands of a Muslim, none.
I mean, it's like that article I was just showing you about the Swedish girl that was raped by the migrants. They just said, oh, well, the rapists are victims too. Yeah. The victims are always those that are on the higher plane of oppression. In
the progressive stack.
Yeah. So, if it's we got this migrant, well, he's always going to be a bigger victim than the white person that is affected. No matter what happens to that white person, the Muslim or minority person will always be the victim.
Which, talking about the Islamization of Europe, we got some studies on the potential populations of Muslims in the future, looking at how it would go even if there was zero future migration. And the study shows that by 2050, the Muslim population is looking to triple in Europe. They're looking at by 2050, there will be 76 million Muslims within Europe. Do you see where they got the breakdown on country-to-country basis, Bobby?
Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. So, in Sweden, nearly a third of the population, 4.5 million or 30%, would be Muslims. Whereas in Austria and Germany, Muslims would represent up to 19% of the population. They said that Muslims could make up 14% of Europe's population by 2050. And they said also if high migration continues until 2050, Britain's Muslim share will grow to 17.2%, Finland's to 15%, and Norway's to 17%.
So this is all, really recent stuff, all from this migration.
Just a couple of years.
Yeah, just a couple decades they've been able to get this high population. And, two, this is something that the people of Europe weren't asked if they want. It wasn't up to them if they wanted to change their society, if they want to change their culture, if they want to bring people with culture that has aspects of it which is diametrically opposed to how they've been living their lives. And it brings conflict. The demographics, pretty crazy out there.
You're going to reach a point where you can't stop it.
And just
I think it's already there.
I think so as well.
So when we did the podcast all those months ago on the Islamic terrorism in Europe, you know, there were some really startling studies on how Muslims in Europe see themselves. What was it, 2/3 of British Muslims support Sharia law? Mm-hmm. So
they don't see themselves as British.
No.
They see themselves as Muslims.
Yeah, they just happen to live in a different place.
So if we hit 2050 and 17.2% of, Britain is Muslim, and, a good portion of that is, Sharia sympathetic.
And you're not going to move to, small areas. They're going to be living in large
they're concentrated
towns.
in, their communities. Think about the American Revolution. It was only 1% of the population.
I've heard 3%.
3%, yeah, that's where the 3% that organization's name comes from. There's 3% of the population that supported revolution, actively did stuff. So they would have enough numbers to actually pull out a revolution if they saw fit to, take over if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's what they're told to do.
Yeah. They want to. It's an imperialistic religion. You look at its basis from its root. It is a religion that was spread from the Arabian Peninsula out through military conquest.
Yeah, my beloved, he was a warlord.
And this has never ended. ISIS was still a continuation of this imperialistic Islamic ideology that they continue to adhere to. And there's too many of those people that believe that in Europe. And the people of Europe, I don't know if they deserve this. Because, we always talk about Sweden. It's really bad there. We cut this from the article dump list of things that we go over, but they have a big problem with grenade attacks out there. Okay, they have grenade attack rates that are on par with Somalia. And, you know, I have family in Sweden, and I used to hear what Sweden used to be like. And, you know, it's a socialist country. You don't have a lot of the same freedoms we do in the United States, but it was still good.
They had their own culture, yeah.
It was fine, okay? The Swedes, one of the most neutral people to ever exist. They haven't fought a war in over 200 years. What did they do to be invaded in such a fashion to where their cities are being taken over? They don't feel safe to, you know, jog at night without a police officer like we've reported. All these terrible things. They have to have, you know, all the rapes that came along with the mass migration to them.
Rape capital
What
of
did
Europe.
they... Yeah, rape capital of Europe. They have numbers on par with a lot of Africa, where, you know, it's used, rape, as a weapon of war out there. What did the Swedish people do to deserve this? I don't know, it really pisses me off. And I don't really want Sweden to be Muslim. I mean...
I don't think they do either.
Do you look at the world and say, like, oh, China, I want that to be Muslim. I want to change these societies in ways they've never been. Do you look at fucking Japan and say, like, oh, I'm going to change that, I'm going to make it China, or I'm going to make it Christian. Like, this is not ways that people look at other nations. But if it's the United States, or if it's, you know, a Western nation, that's how people they view these things.
It's because we're guilty of our success.
Changed. Yeah.
That's what it boils down to, is we're just guilty.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was ranting a bit there, but let's go on to the next story. This is a funny story. So, this week, President of France, Emmanuel Macron, I forgot where this is taking place, but
somewhere in France, I think.
Yeah, it was an exchange between him and a Moroccan woman whose visa had expired, and he just told the woman, "Go back to your country. You are not in danger, or if you are not in danger, you should go back to your country. You are not in danger, Morocco. I can give French papers to everyone who doesn't have them. How would I deal with people who are already here and can't find a job?" So, you know, the lady, her visa expired. She's like, oh, but, you know, I want to be in France. I deserve it, or something. I don't know. And he's like, there's not a problem with Morocco. That's where you're from. It's where you belong. You weren't authorized to stay here beyond where you were given. So it's a time to go back. It's funny, you know. Macron got into power to avoid Le Pen getting, you know, the power to crack down on immigration, but Macron has actually been the one that's been cracking down pretty hard in comparison to other leaders in Europe. I mean, he recently came out and said, like, all criminal migrants are being deported right now. We're working on it. Which, you know, they don't do that in Germany.
No, in Germany, the only people that they arrest are the people who speak out against it.
Yeah, the hate speech. So, yeah. I don't know. Funny that he told her to go back to Morocco.
And she should. She really should.
She should go back.
But the next story we got up is apparently there is an EU report, or I should say EU-funded report, that told the Journalistic Code of Practice, telling journalists to not report negative migrant stories.
Don't talk about this.
The guideline even calls on journalists to report their colleagues to the authorities for hate speech if they do. The code was financed by the European Union's Rights, Equality, and Citizenship Program, defining hate speech as expressions which promote or justify xenophobia, including intolerance expressed by aggressive nationalism.
Aggressive nationalism is not wanting to give away your country to people that weren't ever there.
After World War II, nationalism became a dirty word.
Yeah.
That's really what happened.
Any European nation that thinks about its own interests before the interests of every single poor person in the world, that's hateful.
Now keep in mind, it's fine for Zimbabwe to have an ultra-nationalistic leader that decides to take all the land from white people away. That nationalism's fine. But if it's a white country that has, you know, some people that are nationalistic, then we got a big problem.
The new guidelines ask hacks to not report migrants as exclusively having a negative impact on society and singles out reports that present migration as constituting a net cost to the social safety net, and to only mention a migrant's ethnic origin or religion when necessary for the audience to understand the news.
What are the benefits, though? They say don't do it in a negative way. I'm genuinely serious. Like, what are the net benefits of having those kinds of migrants in your country? They're not educated most of the time.
They're not working most of the time.
Yeah, like what seriously, what are the benefits? I would like someone to actually like honestly answer me that.
It's your birth rates are low in these countries, so you need them to work to pay off the pensions for your vast social systems you have there with all the socialistic entitlements they have. That's the reason, but it doesn't seem to be working out that way. So let's move on to the next one. This is good news. Romania is now joining Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic in rejecting the acceptance of Muslim migrants.
Good.
Let me read some of this. EU President Juncker wants to allow Romania into the border-free Schengen zone, no doubt, as an additional Muslim migration route, now that other Eastern European countries have closed their borders to it. I'm sorry, I'm flubbling over my words a bit. So, Romania is just saying, they're not going to do this. They don't want to do this. They don't want to, turn Romanian Muslim. And I mean, they are already close to some pretty, Islamic nations. They're very close to Turkey. They have to deal with all that stuff. So if they open up the routes for them to go through there would be millions of migrants going through Romania, if not staying there. But, yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple little things in here that are interesting. A community in the northwestern country of Satu Mare in Romania threatened to unleash violence if the government proceeds with its partnership with an NGO to build a refugee center for Muslims in their hometown. So Romanians don't take this shit. Okay, they suffered under communism. They don't want to suffer under, Islam. They don't want to have to change who they are. And, it's okay to be Romanian, I guess. Let's, any thoughts on there? I want to go to the last story.
All I want to say is Romania, Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia honestly should all leave the EU and form their own thing.
Yeah.
They should.
They should. Let's go on to the last story, which is also about Emmanuel Macron not being cool. And that is, he said that he is looking to make gender-based insults a legal offense in France. French President Emmanuel Macron on Saturday unveiled measures aimed at educating the public and school children about sexism and violence against women and improving police support for victims. What he is looking to do is if you make some sort of sexist remark, a gendered insult, so say, Bobby, you are a pussy. That's a gendered insult because I'm referring to a woman, in the negative.
Yeah.
I can receive fines for saying that.
Fines, huh? What if I called someone a dick? I'm a guy calling someone else,
No, you see, men aren't related to historical oppression the same way.
Of course. So, what am I thinking? Of course.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, watch what you say in France because you make an insult Emmanuel Macron doesn't like that's a little sexist. You're going to pay for it.
Would fag be sexist?
It'd be racist, probably.
I'm sure
they'll just call it racist.
It's homophobic. It's homophobic.
I'm sure they'll make an exception for that one. Exception is
what about racist
fining
ones?
for it.
Racist ones?
I don't know if we're there yet, but they'll probably come up with it soon.
Good for you, France.
They'll probably
keep it
come
going,
up
guys.
soon.
I'm glad you're the fourth largest
Macron,
military.
Cool in some senses, you need to go back, but pretty lame in others.
That's France in general.
Yeah. So with that, this is our show for the week. I enjoyed it very much. We got on some really hotly contentious issues. Kate Steinle pissed us the fuck off. We talked about how our DNA is an abomination.
Yes, it is.
And we all learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
So in closing, thank you, Lance, for coming on once again.
Thank you.
It's always good to have you on. And have a good one, listeners.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.